Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Greek Mythology, God of the Gods. Chapter 21, Goddess Hestia, come to Hades as a guest when you have time. We and His Majesty Hades are looking forward to your visit. Just after finishing the research, there are still some Hecate who have not slowed down. Poros bids farewell to Hestia. The dignified stove goddess in the red dress waved at him very chicly. This eldest sister of the god king has always disliked staying on Mount Olympus. Instead, he is willing to wander around the world. Do things very casually. After parting from her, Poros took Hecate with him. After attracting many souls from all over the earth, he returned to Hades. Back to Hades, Poros and Hecate have not come to Hades Hall yet. The atmosphere felt a little weird. Polos, you finally, come back, too. Thanatos, the god of death in black robe, saw the two from afar and waved at them while he was busy. Poros took Hecate and soon came to him. At this time, Hypnos, the god of sleep, also came. Poros asked, "Did something happen in Hades?" Hypnos looked at the Pluto hall in the distance. He sighed and said, "Originally it was fine, but Olympus didn't want us to have a good time, and made us trouble for nothing." Someone from Olympus. Poros was a little surprised. "Go in and you'll know." Pointing at the Hades hall, Hypnos said. Poros nodded and exchanged glances with Hecate. The two entered the Hades hall together. As the center of Hades' power, Hades, Pluto hall, the biggest feeling for people, is probably cold and dark. On the tall throne of black iron, Hades, dressed in black, sat solemnly. And below, not far from his position, two figures stood tall. The three were talking about something, and Hades looked up. The first to see the two Poros walking outside. There was a smile from the corner of his iron-like mouth, and he lowered his voice. "Poros, Hecate, you are finally back. I have two excellent gods who are also young here and I want to introduce you to them." Quote. Poros and Hecate bowed to Hades. His eyes immediately fell on the two people in front of the steps of the main hall. The first thing that catches the eye is the handsome brown-haired young man on the left. He looked like a young man of 18 or 19. Slender, with a sickly pale skin. A delicate face with black eyes. Rich in an attractive unique charm. But Poros saw slickness from his eyebrows and flashing eyes. "Then move your eyes to the right." He was slightly taken aback. The faces that came into view were bright and beautiful, and the corners of the familiar mouths were still full of smiles. But today she is not wearing that heroic armor. Instead, put on a bright skirt. The slender and straight legs are white and slender, with a moving appearance. The shoulders with delicate clavicles are covered with brilliant blonde hair like a waterfall. In the touching smile, she is glorious. Like a holy goddess walking out of a temple oil painting. These two are Athena, the goddess of wisdom in Olympus, and Hermes, the messenger of the gods. Poros, you should have heard of them. Quote. Sitting on the throne, Hades first introduced the two Poros. Then he introduced Poros to Athena and Hermes. Hecate and Poros are both my powerful arms, and they are respectively the vice lord and god of the underworld. Hecate, you should know, is the daughter of Asteria, the goddess of meteors. Poros' mother was the goddess Nyx. Quote. After his introduction, Athena, who smiled dignifiedly, took the lead in sweeping down politely with bright eyes. Poros met her eyes for a split second. Each slightly gestured. Then quickly looked to the other side. Poros got acquainted with Hermes. Athena kept smiling and looked at Hecate for a while. With a loud and clear voice, he said in front of him. "Your Majesty Hades, Father God is worried about the lack of personnel here, so he sent me and Hermes to help. It seems that it is too much to worry about now, you have many talents in Hades. Goddess Hecate and Poros are both such young gods." Quote. Her words made the smile on Pluto's face look a lot better. "Compared to Goddess Athena, you are a powerful deity who is famous in the gods. Hecate and I still have a lot to learn." Quote. Not long ago, I met the goddess Hestia on the earth. She praised Goddess Athena to me, "You are the most dazzling pearl of Olympus." Quote. Poros saluted Athena humbly, with a calm expression. The smile on the latter's mouth became thicker. "Goddess Hestia is really overrated. Poros, you are the main god at such a young age." As expected of the blood of goddess Nyx. Quote. She obviously knew about Prometheus sending Poros to the Evernight. Hades above also smiled and said. It turns out that you, Poros, met Sister Hestia in the land this time. I don't know how she is doing recently. Quote, Pluto, don't worry, Goddess Hestia has traveled all over the world and is in a good mood. I have extended an invitation to her on your behalf. If you have time, come to Hades as a guest. Quote, it is good. Hades nodded. At this time, Hermes next to him seemed a little impatient, and couldn't help saying, Your Majesty Pluto, let's talk about business. The underworld has always had few gods and spirits. Under this flood, dead souls are scattered all over the earth. Father God expected that the people in the underworld would be nervous, so he specially appointed me as the guide god of the underworld. Come to help Hades tide over the difficulties. Quote, Athena and I are already here, please tell us what to do as soon as possible. Hades narrowed his eyes. After looking at Hermes for a moment, he said on the throne. When I asked Poros to be my god, I entrusted him with the task of controlling the souls of the underworld. Hermes, you are so active, just be Poros' deputy for now. Hermes turned his head and looked at Poros carefully for a while, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. It doesn't matter what position you take, as long as you can follow the will of the great Father God. If I can help the underworld, I will be satisfied. Quote, okay, Poros, you just came back, take a rest first. Then take Hermes and get familiar with the affairs of Hades. Hades said to Poros, follow your will. Poros nodded. At this time, Athena said, Your Majesty Pluto, I came here with Hermes, and I was ordered by the Father God to assist him and inspect the underworld carefully to see if there is any place that needs the assistance of the gods. Quote, in the next time, I will patrol all over the Hades. May I ask the goddess Hecate to accompany me? Quote, she turned her eyes to Hecate. Sitting on the throne, Pluto pondered for a moment and asked, Hecate, what is your intention? I would like to be with Athena, Hecate replied. Come out of Hades' hall. Hermes hurriedly asked Poros, when shall we go? Don't worry, Your Highness Hermes. Poros summoned several nymphs. You are the envoy sent by the gods to the underworld, we must entertain you first, and then proceed to business. I don't need your entertainment. Hermes' eyes widened. Then, can Your Highness be considerate, I just came back from the dusty world. An underage god who hasn't had time to relax for a moment. Quote, Poros smiled. The messengers of the gods stared at him closely. After thinking about it for a while, he nodded heavily. Well, you'd better not delay Father God's concern for Hades. Rest assured. Watching Hermes leave with several nymphs, a broad smile slowly formed on the corner of Poros' mouth. His eyes turned to Athena, who was standing with Hecate. Hecate, you are going to take Goddess Athena to patrol outside, do you mind letting me drop by? Glancing at him, Hecate said indifferently, use your divine chariot. Poros smiled and took out the void card. Reach out to Athena as a gesture of invitation. I looked at the car of the void with bright colors and smooth lines. The demure and elegant goddess of wisdom smiled and said, Poros god, this chariot of yours is really special. Hephaestus, the most skillful of the gods, also built me a chariot. But even his skill did not produce a car as delicate as yours. Quote, no matter how exquisite the divine car is, it must have enough passengers to be extraordinary. It is a real honor to have you, the goddess Athena, sit here today. Quote, smiling, she watched Athena stepping lightly into the chariot. Poros was last on board after Hecate. The void chariot does not need any horses to pull it, nor does it require human manipulation. Once the Poros is seated, its wheels spin automatically. A burst of dazzling silver light shrouded it. The silver chariot quickly drove out of the range of Hades' hall. To the depths of Hades. The space of Hades is actually very vast, not as narrow as the earth and sky, but the color is too boring. Through the curtains of the divine car, Athena whispered in the car. Hecate nodded. Well, I thought the ocean scenery was monotonous enough. After coming to Hades, I realized that the world of the living is so beautiful. Quote, fortunately, there are countless dead souls in Hades for me to study, as well as a lot of unique materials, and... She stole a glance at Poros. Noticing her expression, the smile on Athena's face inadvertently deepened. Goddess Hecate, when I was invited by Goddess Thesis to go to the sea, I have seen your mother, the goddess Asteria. Quote, oh, then I wonder if my mother mentioned me. Hecate asked. With a bright smile on the corner of her mouth, Athena nodded lightly. Of course, goddess Asteria has to mention you in at least one of the 3 sentences. Say you are her pride, the most beautiful and intelligent daughter in the world. Hecate's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and her voice was as thin as a gnat. How can mother talk so nonsense? Compared to you, goddess Athena, I am far behind. In the eyes of every mother, her children are always the best. And Hecate, you are no worse than anyone else. Quote. Athena shook her hand encouragingly. Poros on the side feels that the picture is a bit inconsistent. If he remembered correctly, Athena was about his age. And Hecate was born thousands of years ago. Why is it that Athena looks like a caring big sister? Seemingly sensing the call in his heart, Hecate finally regained some of her usual calm. Said to Athena, Goddess Thetis is the mother of Goddess Metis. Also your grandmother, she invited you to the ocean, did you say anything? Quote. Athena paused her eyes, restrained her smile and said, When I was born, I have already said in front of the gods that I am a daughter conceived by God the Father alone. I just inherited the authority and divine power left by the original goddess of wisdom in the body of the Father God, but I am by no means her daughter. Quote. I was born without a mother, but with only one father, Zeus, the great king of the gods. Hecate's expression fell silent. Poros felt even more sad in his heart. He knows better than anyone that this sister has a gentle heart under her strong and brave appearance. But in Olympus, she needs to wear a mask forever. Not in front of any gods, showing the slightest flaw. Even if it's just acknowledging the existence of his own mother. She can't do it either. Because even the slightest loophole may arouse the suspicion of the ruthless king of the gods. She seems to have a lot of friends. But she can never talk to anyone. It's just that I can feel, she's lonely. For a moment, Poros deeply understood the difficulty behind the words Hestia said. With a smile on his face, he said to the blonde goddess of wisdom. Goddess Athena, then we hit it off too much. I am a god conceived by my mother alone, born without a father. Nyx, the goddess of the night, and Erebus, the god of darkness, are spouses. But the two were not very much together in the first place. The only children they have in common are Ethel, the god of space, Hemera, the goddess of day, and Charon, the god of crossing the river Styx. Others such as Thanatos, Hypnos, and many strange gods in the realm of the night. They were all conceived by the goddess of the night alone. Just like the 3 brothers of Uranus, the first god king, and Gaia, the earth mother. Poros' current identity is also a child conceived by the goddess of the night alone. But the real meaning of what he said to Athena. It means that he only has the mother of Métis. As for Zeus, he was not worthy to be their father. Hecate only thought he was explaining that he was a god conceived by Evernight alone. Only Athena understood what he meant. On the divine chariot, the goddess of wisdom smiled faintly again. The glory is bright, the sacred pride. The car of the void with smooth lines stopped firmly on the lively black land. The 3 of Poros got off the chariot. Look around. Surprise appeared in Athena's pale golden eyes. The underworld is mostly barren and empty along the way, and occasionally there are aimless souls roaming around. Why are there so many dead souls busy working in this place? Follow her finger. I saw a piece of dark underworld land. A bright light was lit. Under the not too dazzling light, many dead souls gathered. They come in groups, carry a large amount of materials in an orderly manner. On the empty black land, many buildings were built bustlingly and diligently. This scene made Athena, the well-informed goddess of wisdom, can't help but be surprised. Not all souls of the dead are devoid of spirituality. Why are there hundreds of thousands of dead souls in front of me? They all behaved like normal creatures, intelligent, sensitive, neat and orderly. Houses will also be built. Seeing Athena's surprise, Poros smiled and said, Thanks to our goddess Hecate. It is she who created the magic that allows us to awaken the wisdom of the dead. Quote. Hecate glared at him. Spirit summoning magic was developed by you, don't attribute it to me. Aware of their arrival, there are many dead souls in the bustling building in the distance. They all stopped what they were doing and knelt on the ground excitedly. One and only, O most holy and good Poros. You are the god of opportunity, the lord of thousands of dead souls, the light of redemption. In the ignorance of death, you light the flame of the spirit, and you guide the way ahead in the ignorance and confusion. And noble Hecate, you are the wise man who studies the truth, the goddess who created magic. You are manifested in the sky, in the ocean, but more in the underworld, the queen of all dead souls. Pious prayers can be heard endlessly. Standing between Poros and Hecate, Athena smiled lightly and said, "It seems that these dead souls respect you very much. They believe in Poros more than I do." Hecate smiled and pointed to the center of the city-state under construction in the distance. There stands a tall and straight statue there, in the dark environment of Hades. The top of the statue's head shone with golden light, matches the brilliant blonde color of Poros, and the two silver gemstones inlaid on the face of the statue, shining like stars. It is exactly the same as Poros's starry eyes. As for the body, the face, and all of them match the appearance of Poros. At the beginning, these dead souls who were called back to their wisdom actually just wanted to build a temple for him. But he said that he awakened their spirit and wisdom, not just for them to build him temples. It is even more necessary for them to build a more prosperous home on the barren underworld than when they were alive. Quote, "That's how this city-state came into existence." Hecate's slender jade hand waved and pointed to the connected buildings in front of her. Tian Jing said, "This city-state has already been named, Saint Poros." Saint Poros. Chanting the name, Athena's delicate and bright face inadvertently showed a hint of pride. Over there Poros smiled and looked at her. "This will only be the first city-state of Hades. In the days to come, I will build more city-states in Hades. Let the prosperity of the kingdom of the dead override the kingdom of the living on earth." Quote, "You forgot, the humans on the earth have been extinct now," Hecate reminded. Athena shook her head suddenly. "That's not necessarily the case." Hecate looked at her strangely. When she was about to ask something, Poros said to her, "The Sphinx was dropped by you in the space capsule. If you don't let her out, your research material will die." Quote, "Oh, I forgot about her. You stay here first, I'll go to my research room." He took out a brown bag from his body. Hecate hurriedly ran to a building not far from the city of St. Poros. That bag is the space capsule, a creation realized by the space magic that Poros co-created with her. It was funny to watch her run away in a hurry. Poros and Athena looked at each other. The figure disappeared in place. Soon came to a barren hill not far away. Gazing around for a while, Poros slowly looked at Athena. "Sister, long time no see." The bright-eyed girl with a gorgeous long skirt and a charming smile stretched out her arms, touched the other party up to her neck and head, whispered, "Poros, you have grown taller. It's not just growing taller, it's also becoming stronger. We will soon have the strength to avenge our mother." Poros revealed to her his fourth-order personality as the main god. Athena was full of relief and surprise. "Poros, you really make my sister proud. But don't worry, I've been preparing at Olympus. Now is not the time to plan." Quote, she was afraid that Poros would be too impulsive because of his improved strength. "Sister, don't worry, I know what to do," Poros said. "That's good." The two stared at each other for a while. Poros asked, "Sister came to Hades this time, did our father worry about Hades and sent you and Hermes to monitor?" Athena nodded. The two brothers, Neptune and Pluto, have always been the objects he is most worried about. Especially Pluto. Compared with the Neptune, who is like him, Pluto, who has always been independent, makes him fear the most. Quote, "As early as when he first became the king of gods, he sent 100 armed titans to guard around the underworld. Now that some changes have taken place in Hades, I can't sit still. So be careful what happens next, Hermes might mess up something." Quote, "Yeah," Poros nodded. "With just one Hermes, there won't be any big waves in Hades. Don't underestimate him. Hermes is the most trustworthy son of Zeus. In terms of strength, he may not be top-notch among the main gods, but his authority is more difficult and troublesome." Quote, there was a warning in Athena's eyes. Stealing, cheating, traveling, these are the most important authority of Hermes. Not very powerful, but a skater. Quote, "Even me, against this guy. It is easy to defeat him, but it is almost impossible to completely subdue him." Quote, sister's reminder Poros took it to heart. He asked again. "Just now Hecate said that human beings are extinct. Sister, your behavior is a bit strange." You will know about this matter when His Royal Highness Prometheus comes over. I just met him not long ago. Athena smiled and rubbed Poros' head. Poros felt the softness of her palm. With his chin straightened, he looked at those pale gold pupils, and said, "He is my teacher in name, and he hasn't taught me anything for so many years." "Don't say that," Athena glared at him. "If it weren't for His Royal Highness Prometheus, you wouldn't have been accepted by the goddess Nyx so easily. And he is also obsessed with important things, so he hasn't appeared in these years." Important things, Poros couldn't help thinking. When he was in Prometheus' residence, he put away the humanoid silhouette mixed with water and soil. A guess flashed in my heart. Wanting to ask something more, Athena shook her head. "Poros, it can be seen that you have had a good time in Hades these years. That puts my mind at ease. Don't worry too much, I have been preparing the plan to deal with Zeus in Olympus. This matter is very complicated and dangerous. My sister actually likes that you can stay away from this vortex." Bending slightly, Athena's gentle cheek was close to Poros' gaze. "Sister, if you think this is my protection, then you are wrong. From the very beginning, Zeus and I cannot coexist. I will never allow myself to hide behind you forever. You, who bear the power of war, are the brave and heroic goddess of war. And I, who has the same mother as you, am not a coward who lacks courage." Quote. He stared closely at his sister's delicate face. Poros looked solemn. He took Athena's hand, whispered in her ear, "Sister, you should never fight alone, we are one body." The body trembled slightly. Athena looked away. Pale golden eyes looked at the center of the city of St. Poros, which was still being built in the distance. The splendid god statue standing on the top of the city-state. After a long time, leisurely said, "Poros, you've really grown up. Become a powerful deity that amazes my sister. It makes me feel relieved and sad at the same time." The two stared at each other for a long time. Holding hands, they became closer and closer to each other. Until seeing Hecate flying far away, the two let go of their hands and faced Hecate. Athena whispered to Poros while reminding her, "Talk about other things later. You are now serving under the command of Pluto. Compared with Zeus and Poseidon, Pluto is actually not bad. But don't trust him too much, this time Hermes' entry into Hades is not as simple as it appears on the surface." Quote. Poros' eyes flickered slightly. Poros, right, it's been so long since you came. Standing before the dark palace, the slender Hermes looked impatient. "Sorry for the delay." Poros, who just arrived, had a smile on his face. Hermes frowned. "Now take me to see the specific affairs." "Okay, come with me." Poros took the famous messenger of the gods with him. Came to a large plain in front of the river Styx. Many souls who had just died gathered here. Brothers Thanatos and Hypnos commanded them. Pass Charon's ferry in an orderly manner and go to the depths of Hades. Generally speaking, when a dead soul is directed to the underworld, it will first be numbered and registered here. Then they were sent to the resettlement area behind the Styx. Quote. Poros introduced Hermes, looking at the many dead souls around them in an orderly manner. The brown eyes of the messenger of the gods can't help flashing a cold light. "Father God sent me here to inquire about the situation in Hades. Now it seems that the prosperity of Hades has exceeded expectations. With so many dead souls being managed in an orderly manner, the gods of Hades cannot be underestimated." Quote. Hermes was full of fear, sweeping Poros beside him, and brother Thanatos among the dead souls. He pretended to be arrogant and said, "Your gods of the underworld just don't know anything. It's just some dead souls that will dissipate in a few hundred years. What a painstaking numbered registry to do. Just throw them all over the underworld and let them fend for themselves, wouldn't it be enough?" Quote. As he spoke, he waved his hand and pointed at Poros. "The underworld is originally a dumping ground for disposing of useless souls here. The duty of the gods of the underworld is to transport the garbage on the earth to the underworld." Quote. Father God is indeed right to worry, you have not cleared this up at all. The garbage piled up on the vast land is not moved, but the trash in this garbage dump is sorted out. Really ignorant. Quote. Whether it is Poros, or Thanatos and the Hypnos brothers in the distance. Hearing this, his face became ugly. "Your Highness Hermes, I hope you can think clearly about what you are talking about. Hades is a divine court area separate from Olympus and the ocean. Rule the kingdom of death. Quote, when you compare Hades to a garbage dump, you are not only insulting His Majesty Hades, the eldest brother of the god king. It is also a common humiliation to all the gods of the underworld. Quote, Poros suppressed his smile. He looked coldly at the most trusted messenger of the king of the gods. Thanatos and Hypnos, who heard the conversation here. They also came behind Poros one by one, with angry eyes. Looking at the three gods full of anger. Hermes was very proud. This is exactly what he wanted. There are not many gods in Hades, these three are the elite under the command of Hades. As long as you subdue them, in the underworld, you will be the only one under the Hades. Hey, I just want to sabotage the construction of your underworld on purpose and make a mess here. Let Pluto grow bigger and feel comfortable. How can Father God sleep peacefully? Quote, now that woman Athena is also in Hades, it is impossible for Pluto to directly attack me. It's time for you ignorant gods of the underworld to know the abilities of the main god of Olympus. Weigh the plan before and after. Hermes sees no loopholes. Immediately, he put on a proud look, and pointed his nostrils at the three of them. If I tell the truth, you humiliate the gods of the underworld. Then I have to say, you are really living in the falsehood of self-deception and cannot tolerate reality. Quote, he didn't finish his sentence. A black scythe appeared in Thanatos, the god of death. The stammering god of death. Knowing his own shortcomings, he does everything directly. A sharp scythe carries a dim light. Slashed at Hermes' throat. Bold, I am the envoy sent by the god king to Hades, how dare you sneak attack me? Seeing Thanatos slashing with his sickle, Hermes is not afraid of rejoicing. While yelling loudly, a black light glowed in his hand. The figure flickered, and the surrounding space rippled. When Thanatos's dark scythe fell on where he was standing, the figure of the messenger of the gods has disappeared. When Death frowned, only then did he realize the sickle in his hand. I don't know when it was stolen. Hermes with a thick robe and a thin figure. Standing proudly not far away, holding a black sickle in his hand. He looked at the three of them with ironic eyes. It's so fast, are these the two powers of travel and stealing that my sister mentioned? The mysterious eyes are silvery. Poros locked on Hermes tightly. My knife, still, come. Thanatos yelled hoarsely, and rushed towards Hermes in the distance angrily. His brother Hypnos followed suit. Activate the sleep authority to help Thanatos. As the son of the goddess of the night, Hypnos and Thanatos are not strong in power, they are just high gods. But their authority is very impressive. Especially the sleep power of Hypnos, in Greek mythology known to Poros. It was Zeus who once plotted against the king of the gods. Acting on Hermes at this moment, the effect appears in an instant. Originally triumphant, the messenger of the gods holding the death scythe. The spirit instantly became sluggish and wobbly. The two Thanatos brothers took the opportunity to pounce on him. You, how dare you underestimate us? Hypnos yelled. He punched Hermes all over with Thanatos' fists and kicks. Seeing that Hermes has been knocked down, Poros suddenly called out from behind. Be careful, this is fake. He finished speaking. Hermes fell to the ground after being punched and kicked by the Thanatos brothers. Dissipates into a lather with a brush. When the two gods of death and sleep are frightened, a surge of divine power suddenly surged from behind. The two were beaten and flew out. Fortunately, Poros reacted in time and caught them in midair. To stand again. Only then did the two gods see clearly. The figure of Hermes did not know when. Appeared behind them with a sneer on their faces. Hermes whom they defeated. It's just an illusion created by this messenger of the gods with the authority of deception. Is this the god of the underworld? No wonder I can only do some dirty work. What a pile of rubbish. The sarcasm and triumphant words made the embarrassing gods of sleep and death fly into a rage. In fact, as a veteran upper god, even if Hermes is the main god, the two shouldn't have lost so badly. It's just that the abilities of the dead and sleeping gods are not suitable for frontal combat. Especially Hypnos's sleep power, if it is a sneak attack. Even the top-ranked main god will be tricked if he is not careful. But when confronted head-on, he failed to produce an effect. Especially in the face of Hermes, the main god of power, especially skaters. Urshan felt aggrieved. His eyes were red and he stared forward. Poros held them firmly. Thanatos, Hypnos, this guy is a very capable skater, let me do it. Comforting the two of them. Poros locked Hermes coldly. Your Highness Hermes, our underworld is a warm welcome to you. But you are not only ungrateful, but also insulting the underworld and hurting my underworld god. Even if you are the envoy of the god king, you still have to pay for what you did today. The brilliant and translucent spirit staff suddenly appeared in the palm of Poros. The holy breath spread. Beams of golden light swished towards Hermes. Well, you brat, you still have a little bit of yourself. Hermes' expression changed, and he sensed Poros' strong personality as the main god. He still looks frivolous on the surface. Secretly, the divine power has been gathered to the extreme. The power of travel shakes the surrounding space. The body is blurred, and thousands of phantoms swim out. None of the thousands of beams of light emitted by the staff of spirit could hit him. Haha, a brat is a brat, you're still too immature after all. As long as you promise to see me later. Just bow your head and kneel to me, I will let the three of you go today. Quote. Hermes' figure is cruising around in the space. The sneering voice filled Poros' ears with strange power. Poros is not doing well. Thanatos and Hypnos suddenly covered their heads with a splitting headache. In addition to the authority of travel, stealing, and deception. Hermes, the famous main god of Olympus, also has part of the authority of music. Now he is combining this authority in his words to attack. The mysterious eyes flashed bright luster. Poros stopped the attack of the light beam, and the spirit stick fell to the ground suddenly. One by one magic runes appeared instantly. Around him and Thanatos, an invisible shield formed. Hermes was surprised to find that his sonic attack was completely blocked. When the complexion is changing. Poros's flat and cold voice suddenly resounded through the faint void. Hermes, I just want you to apologize to us now. He also promised to avoid me if he saw me in the future. When you beg for mercy, I can leave you with some dignity today. Quote. Blonde kid, are you kidding me? Hermes sneered just now. I saw a ray of light like a sharp arrow shoot out from Poros' spirit staff. Right on his shoulder. Laugh. The dark red blood dripped from Hermes' shoulder. Bursts of tingling pain made the envoy of the gods furious and shocked. How is it possible? It must be a coincidence. Hermes comforted himself. The travel authority continues to activate. The figure is like a wriggling worm, constantly shuttling inside and outside the void. But the silver eyes of Poros. A deep light looms faintly. Whole through the veins of the laws of all things in the world. Clearly observed every space jump of Hermes. Swipe. Dozens of brilliant rays of light shot out fiercely from the crystal of the spirit staff. It runs through all parts of Hermes' body. Although the messengers of the gods rely on the powerful spiritual sense of the main god. Always avoid danger and danger. But only in the blink of an eye. He was already covered in blood, and his body was covered in scars. No, his eyes. My heart trembled abruptly. Hermes, who was covered in blood, suddenly stopped the space jump. A pair of brown pupils. He stared desperately at where Poros was. He saw the deep silver eyes of the other party that were as bright as the starry sky. Take a deep breath. In his hand, he took out a brightly colored long metal staff with twin snakes coiled around it. He drank in a low voice. Blonde brat, it seems that I really underestimated you. But as the main god of Olympus, I, Hermes, have never relied on a few difficult powers. Quote. Appreciate my true strength. In an instant, the thick divine power of the third level of the main god erupted from him. Blessed on the artifact in hand. The scepter with the twin serpents. The brilliance bloomed brilliantly, forming a gnawing hole in the air. Like a poisonous snake coming out of a hole, it fell violently towards Poros. The surrounding space vibrated, as if it was about to burst. The expressions of Thanatos and Hypnos changed. Hurriedly ran to the vicinity of the many dead souls who were at a loss because of this battle. Bring them to Brother Charon's ship. At this moment, Poros's expression reached unprecedented calmness. Also raised the spirit stick in his hand. Glorious wings condensed with light and fire appeared faintly behind him. The holy fiery fluctuations rumbled and shook the entire underworld. This is the divine spell, holy wings. Poros opened it in the novice gift package, and this is the first time to use it. When he opened it, there was nothing there. Like the shadow of light and fire, the wings of nothingness and dream. Everything around, the earth, soil, sand, gravel, vegetation, all seemed to have been baptized by the Holy Spirit. Infinite light and fire, under the command of the Spirit Stick. Scorching heat filled the cavity where Hermes condensed. A violent explosion resounded throughout. The endless aftermath raged in all directions. Devour and destroy everything. Sitting high on the Hades hull in the center of Hades, the Hades with a face like black iron. His complexion also changed abruptly. The two of them really fought, but the movement was too loud. This volatility, the strength of Poros, exceeds the valuation. The Lord of Hades dare not neglect. Immediately jumped up from his throne and flew outside. And on the other side, Athena and Hecate, who were inspecting Hades together. They were all shocked by this astonishing movement. Looking at each other, the two rushed to the center of the movement at the same time. And at the core of the fierce collision between the rod and the rod. The battle continues. How is it possible? He is an immature god. How can you have such a level of power? Quote, both hands clasped the golden staff coiled around the two serpents. The bloody, distressed Hermes was in the embers of light and fire. The more you fight, the more frightened you become, and the more you fight, the more frightened you become. As the son of Zeus, king of the gods, and Maia, goddess of wind and rain. He was born with extraordinary talent. Adulthood is not a long time. Already a powerful god of the third rank of the main god. As the apex of the ranks of gods, the main gods are generally divided into 9 ranks. However, there are very few high-level main gods who can reach the 7th level or above in the entire court. The 3rd level of the main god can already be called the strongest god who dominates one side. Among the 12 main gods of Olympus, Hera, the queen of gods, Aphrodite, the god of love and beauty, etc. But there are only poor master gods 1st and 2nd ranks. And since he is not a long-term adult, he still has some room for improvement. It is not impossible to reach the 5th or 6th level of the main god in the future. Hermes is also very proud of this. But in the fight with Poros, his pride was shattered inch by inch. The 4th level of the main god, not yet an adult. Father God was nothing more than this at the beginning. When his heart trembled, the spiritual staff fell coldly. The whole body is crystal clear, like a crystal scepter. With a bang, it hit the golden rod wrapped around Hermes' double snakes. The body of the messenger of the gods shook. The divine weapon rested on his hands, and he flew upside down on the dark land of Hades. Screamed, how could I lose so easily? He was unwilling to roar. Trying to escape with the authority of travel. But under the eyes of mystery. He has not yet had time to activate his authority. The surrounding space was imprisoned by a blazing divine power. Staring at him indifferently. Behind Poros the wings of light and fire flickered. The spirit staff is about to shoot out a fierce beam of light again, piercing through Hermes' divine body. The latter screamed in horror. If this is implemented, the divine body of the messenger of the gods is not considered strong, at least it must be seriously injured. At this moment, a heavy force of death appeared in the void, intercepted in front of Poros. Hades, the king of the underworld, dressed in black, holds the world-famous double-pronged fork. Appeared between the two. Poros, you can stop. With a face as black as iron, the ruthless Pluto quietly looked at the blonde-haired and silver-eyed boy. Hermes, who was knocked to the ground, breathed a sigh of relief. Staggering up, he shouted, Pluto, is this the attitude of your underworld towards the envoys of the gods? I came to help on behalf of God the Father's will, but your gods wounded me. This damages not only my face, but also the majesty of the king of the gods. Quote. He didn't finish his sentence. A terrible dead air suddenly emerged from Hades. Coldly locked Hermes. Don't think I don't know what you're doing. If you still want to stay in Hades, then today's business will stop here. The dark pupils of the Lord of Hades. With a deep warning, the envoys of the wounded gods were chilled all over. After hesitating for a moment, he chose silence. Poros was watching him and Pluto quietly. Brothers Thanatos and Hypnos couldn't help it. They came to Hades, very annoyed. Pluto, all this is because he insulted Hades first, it can't be forgotten. Hades looked at them and said lightly, "The relationship between God Court and Hades needs to be maintained, no matter what the reason is. I say call it a day." Quote, the dead and sleeping gods were startled. They looked at each other in place for a moment, their faces a little ugly. At this point Poros pulled them behind, looking at Hades with an indifferent face, and Hermes in a mess. Suddenly smiled and said, "His Royal Highness Hermes is really good. I am very satisfied with this match. Your Majesty Hades, I will take Thanatos and the others to rest first." "You're still sensible, Poros." Hades forced a smile on his grim face. Poros turned away slowly. Pulling Thanatos and Hypnos, they headed towards the city of St. Poros. Facing him, he saw Hecate and Athena coming, eyes on each other. He suddenly understood what Athena said before. Don't trust Hades too much. The meaning of this sentence. Hades, you are also a king after all. From the beginning to the end, our relationship is also based on what we need. In the bright palace, looking at the dejected Thanatos and Hypnos, Hecate frowned and said, "Pluto's behavior today is a bit strange." "It's strange. Is he so afraid of the god king of Olympus? That Hermes guy was about to ride and shit on us." Quote, Poros already beat Hermes to the ground, and he actually said that's all. Hypnos was very indignant. Next to him is Thanatos, the god of death. While wiping his lost and recovered sickle, said hoarsely, "Pluto, Lord, no. Should be, this, so, soft, weak, person." Listen to the conversation of the three. Poros suddenly laughed. "You were wrong, Pluto's behavior is not surprising at all." The three of Hecate looked at him suspiciously. Poros said, "You think, if Hades is unwilling, can the god king of Olympus really easily send his son to Hades?" Quote, if this is the case, after the Titan War, for such a long time, Hades should not have belonged to Hades. Quote, at his words, the three of Hecate fell into deep thought. After a while, he said, "Poros, what do you mean? Hermes entered Hades and caused conflicts, is it Hades himself wanted to see?" Quote, otherwise, why didn't the god king get a man in Hades before? Not long after we joined Hades, there was Hermes entering Hades. Quote, Poros sneered, his eyes staring at the endless darkness outside. He has figured it out thoroughly. Hades is playing checks and balances. There are few gods in Hades itself, except for him and Hecate. There are only a few weak gods who can't get on the stage at all. So Hades is thirsty for talents. Seek help in the realm of the night. But with the addition of him and Hecate, the strength of Hades can come to the fore. But it also brings a problem. Hades, the Pluto, is all the gods of the faction of the night realm. Both myself and Hecate are main gods with great potential, and they can reach the high level of the main god during holidays. Be king. All the subordinates wear a pair of trousers, which is of course a taboo. What's more, behind the four of them is the Evernight goddess. Hades may be confident that he can overwhelm the four of them, but have to be afraid. Nyx, the original god who has been hidden in the underworld for many years. Take the current situation in Hades. If this goddess has an idea, want to empty him, the Pluto, then he will immediately become a puppet. Be king. Naturally, he cannot place his fate on the possible goodwill of others. So it wasn't long before the four of them were introduced. He also made an opening for Zeus, who had always wanted to get his hands on the underworld. So there is Hermes in the underworld. In this way, Hades will no longer be dominated by the Night family. But too strong confrontation. As the king of Pluto, he can sit on the throne and be a referee with peace of mind. Look at the conflict between the two factions below. This is what his sister wanted to tell him, what Hades really thought. It became clear. Poros gradually calmed down. From the very beginning, he and Hades were actually using each other. One needs to strengthen the strength of Hades, and the other needs to legally govern many dead souls. It's just that the two of them were able to show some affection for each other. And now Hades doesn't trust him, undoubtedly making this relationship too naked. This is also the helplessness of life. In the position of Hades, it is also wise not to trust anyone. Otherwise, he is not worthy of being called a king. But now that the relationship has been torn apart, from then on, everything can only speak in terms of interests. Hades, are you ready? Wait, Then, I think Pluto will continue to introduce gods from Olympus or the ocean soon. Quote. Otherwise, just one Hermes will not be able to check and balance us. Or he will provoke your relationship with me. Poros suddenly looked at Hecate. The girl in the brown skirt gave him a blank look. Why, you don't trust me either. I don't believe that Pluto can buy our intelligent and considerate goddess Hecate. Poros stroked the girl's smooth hair with a smile. The two looked at each other and smiled. As predicted by Poros. After that, successively, many gods of Olympus settled in Hades. But Hermes who led them. It's like being scared by Poros. Without the arrogance that I had when I first came here, I have always been very responsible. The two sides did not have a major conflict as Hades wished. And Hades also tried to win over the relationship between Poros and Hecate. But it didn't work. On the contrary, the two brothers Thanatos and Hypnos were very unhappy. Because the two of them didn't even have the qualifications to be carefully drawn over. Was flamboyantly ignored. This made the brothers complain non-stop in their spare time. I am so wronged, when will our upper god stand up? This world is too real. In this way, Poros spent another 10 years in Hades. During this period, his reputation value reached 200,000. Ding, the host has obtained a 200,000 reputation gift package. Do you want to open the gift package? The system's emotionless voice sounded in his head. This day, Poros returned to his deserted temple. Arranged a little, in order not to open up any great fetish, directly shocking the whole world. After finishing, open the gift bag silently. Ding, the gift pack of 200,000 fame has been opened. Ding, you get Supreme Heart 1, Foolish Mask 1. Accompanied by a beep. 2 streams of information came to Poros' mind. Open black lens bracket name, Mask of Fool. A special artifact made of strange spar. It looks like an unremarkable mask on the outside. But as long as you wear him, you can perfectly cover up your identity. Others will never discover your true side. Because in front of the mask of foolishness, they will all become stupid fools. Close black lens bracket. He looked at the black mask that appeared in his hand. Poros looked at it carefully, nodded and said, hide your identity and reduce the intelligence of others. If this artifact is used well, it is actually infinitely powerful, not bad. Quote. As he said that, he first put away the mask of foolishness. Focus on another stream of information in your mind. The fetish named, Supreme Heart. It has also appeared in front of his eyes. It is a golden heart flowing with magnificent color. Floating in front of Poros' eyes. It was beating non-stop. Poros is on top of it. Feel a sacred, great, indescribably vast flavor. Like a supreme king who dominates the gods and rules the universe. Standing in front of him. Quietly overlooking the young him. And the information about the Supreme Heart in my mind. Then, open black lens bracket name, Supreme Heart. Contained by the essence of the law, the heart of the Supreme King. Those who integrate this heart can get the favor of the law, the fit of the root, and the strongest physique. Using any authority will increase the power by 50%. And even if the god body, divinity, and soul are all wiped out, it can also be revived once with the power of the heart. Close black lens bracket. Read this information carefully. The way Poros looked at the golden heart finally made waves. The law favors, fits the root, strengthens the body, and resurrects once. Muttering under his breath, he admitted he was a little taken aback. Among the effects introduced by the Supreme Heart, what he cares most about is the effect of matching the root and resurrecting once. Resurrection. This is easy to understand. In line with the root, it starts with what the root is. The gods can rule the universe and dominate the world, relying on all kinds of authority that can leverage the law and the power of the root. It is the deep power of law and authority, the source of everything. The roots make up the law, make up the world. This is the level of the original god. Today's gods, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades and other 3 kings, ranked at the apex of the main god and ruled the world. But in the face of the Earth Mother, the goddess of the night and other primordial, they are also respectful and restrained. Because no matter how powerful they are only the main gods who wield the authority of laws. Rather than the origin that constitutes the world, the source of everything. It is the primordials who built everything in the world with the root. There are laws and authority, and there are gods. The power of the root. It is a power that even the kings who rule the world cannot touch. Of course, this does not mean that they are helpless in front of several original gods. In fact, Zeus was several kings. It is impossible to use the pure top level of the main god to judge the personality. Facing the original, they have their own means of countering. Otherwise, they are the original puppets such as the Earth Mother, rather than the kings who rule one side. But in the final analysis, they failed to go beyond the framework of law and authority. Step into the realm of the roots. And the supreme heart, in front of him. It has the effect of making people fit the root. He stared at the golden heart for a while. Poros tried to stick it to his chest. At this time, a burst of magnificent light flickered. The majestic, supreme heart, suddenly turned into illusory light, pouring into his chest heart. Bang bang, bang bang, the astonishing beating sound echoed in the empty palace. Brilliant golden light, full of internal organs. Poros felt an unprecedented strong force flowing down his chest and flowing into his whole body. Inject into every cell and every particle of the divine body. In the blink of an eye, the quality of all aspects of Poros's divine body. Whether it is strength, speed, reaction, or density, etc., they have all been enhanced by more than 10 times. Although the Greek protos can't be called crispy. But it also mainly relies on authority and divine power. With a pure divine body, the power is not amazing. At the moment Poros does feel it. I can kill a high god with one punch. With the integration of the supreme heart, the quality of his divine body has undergone numerous changes in all aspects. That's not the biggest change yet. Amidst the golden rays of light, a powerful heart beats non-stop. At this moment, Poros felt that his spirit was also sublimated. Faintly, he passes through the infinite law that pervades the world. I saw a touch of obscure and profound inexplicable power. That's the root. The thought flashed through Poros' mind. The next moment he was out of that state. Although it was only for a moment, Poros deeply remembered that feeling. He knew that his current personality was not enough. If he waited for him to reach the apex of the 9th level of the main god. This is the direction in which he peers into the roots and seeks the original realm. It took him a long time to calm himself down. Even the person who has just reached the 5th level of the main god is also driven to be directly promoted to the 6th level of the main god. The effect of supreme heart is surprising. Poros removed the cover that had been placed around the temple. Feeling the earth-shaking changes in the body, he walked outside. Tens of thousands have increased from the reputation value. He knew the seemingly brief moment he had merged with the supreme heart. In fact, not a short period of time has passed outside. Hey, it's just been a few years since I saw you, Poros, why do I feel that you have changed a lot? Hecate, who was coming towards him, couldn't help but look at the blonde boy in front of him with surprised eyes. Over time, Poros now has the appearance of a 14 or 15-year-old human boy. The full head of blonde hair is gorgeous like gold. He was as tall as the bridge of her nose. When Yao Shang met for the first time, she still remembered that the other party was only as tall as her knees. And now he is a tall and handsome boy. In a short period of time, a kind of noble stalwart that was inherently overflowing. It seems that it has undergone another amazing transformation. At this moment, a pair of silver eyes looked over. It is like a supreme god king transformed from the vast starry sky, standing in front of him. Proud and sacred, it is both close and awe-inspiring. Fortunately, the smile on the corner of his mouth was still as bright and charming as before. He didn't see Hecate's heart that had been turbulent several times in the blink of an eye. Poros asked, "What happened recently?" "I'm fine, but you are. Your teacher has been waiting for you for a while." Hecate pointed outside. Follow the direction she pointed. Poros quickly felt a familiar atmosphere. Get out of the scope of the temple. His extraordinary eyesight sees through great distances. Immediately saw sitting on the bank of the river Styx. Prometheus closed his eyes and meditated. He soon came to the prophet of Shunting who was still in the same white robe and white beard and hair. Prometheus opened his eyes and looked at him in surprise. "Poros, I'm a little surprised by your change." Poros smiled and said, "Teacher, you have been waiting for a long time." Waiting is a homework that needs to be refined for anyone. Just like we need to know how to adapt to the big changes that may occur in a short period of time. Quote. Prometheus stretched his body and stood up from the ground. He looked at Poros carefully again for a while. Speaking of which, I am your teacher. But for so long, I haven't really taught you anything. I am proud and ashamed to see how you have changed over the years. Prometheus sighed. While staring out of the underworld, there was a deep determination on the face of the vicissitudes of life. And this time, I'm just going to let you know what I've been doing all these years. You have to remember everything I do, it's probably the only thing I can teach you. Compared to when collecting dead souls before, now the earth has been devastated from the Great Flood. The former richness and fertility have been restored. Lush vegetation grows densely on every inch of land under the sun. Breeding vitality. I don't know if they survived the flood or were all kinds of animals recreated by the gods. Such as birds, flowered deer, white rabbits, lions and tigers, all gallop on the earth. Or play by the river, or look for food in the forest. The world has returned to its original appearance before the Great Flood. Except for a certain race that was completely wiped out. Come out of Hades, by a small clean and bright lake. Under the melodious and straight birch trees. Poros followed Prometheus. Walk on the vast land. The greatest prophet of the court. He didn't say a word along the way, and he didn't seem to know the destination at all. Just keep walking with Poros. Walk in the plains, walk in the mountains, walk in the grass, walk in the forest. Regardless of torrential rain, wind, thunder and tsunami. The two kept walking. Prometheus is in the front, Poros is in the back. Always face the road ahead. Feel every inch of soil in the vast land, every inch of mountains and rivers under the boundless starry sky. They have seen the fish jumping in the waves of the rushing river. A cacti that grows tenaciously in the dry and boundless desert. On the top of the majestic mountain, there is smooth moss under the wind and snow soared. The natural law of the jungle is cruel. But the hymn of life will always be sung loudly in this land. In the blink of an eye, 9 years have passed. The two of them walked around the whole earth with their footsteps without any divine power. Back to the bright little lake where they started. Prometheus sits by the lake. His originally clean white robe, after 9 years of wind and frost. He was already black and tattered, and his hair and beard were also messy. But the light on the face of the great prophet. But it was brighter than ever before. It's like realizing the ultimate truth of the universe. Watching Poros gently wash his face with the water from the nearby lake. He stroked his beard and asked calmly, Poros, you haven't asked me a word in these 9 years, you just kept following me. Don't you want to know what I'm going to do? Wipe off any water stains on your face. Poros rested his index finger on the tip of his nose, and said with a, hush. Truth needs no words. In 9 years, teacher, although you haven't said a word to me. Quote. But what you want to tell me has already passed through every inch of soil we walked through, every breeze we faced, and every flower we smelled. Represented in my mind. He looked at the birch tree by the lake. Everything is the same as the white birch, which was still very small at the beginning, but now it is towering and sheltering from wind and rain. Take root and sprout, grow and mature. Quote. Prometheus smiled at him. There was a little emotion in the clear eyes. When your sister sent you to me, I feared you would be another Cronus, another Zeus. Quote. But now it seems that I don't see people as well as your sister. Cronus and Zeus are too savage. Even if I walk with me for 10,000 years, I still can't understand the slightest thing I want to express. Quote. How can they compare with you? Poros, you will be my favorite student. The usually gentle and reserved prophet of Shenting laughed wildly at this moment. A cloud of water and a piece of soil appeared in front of him. The water is transparent and crystal clear. The soil is turbid and fertile black soil. Hold the water in one hand and the soil in the other. The outline of a human figure took shape immediately. Prometheus looked solemnly at Poros. He said to him, Look, this is what I spent my whole life researching. The path that belongs to my roots. Mount Olympus. The resplendent and majestic palace of the divine king. Zeus, king of the gods, sits aloft on his throne. In the stalwart figure, the face flickering with electric arcs is terrifying and deep. Let Hermes stand under him, dignified. 9 years, is Prometheus finally going to start? Can't hear the joy or anger, can't taste the joys and sorrows, the plain words with amazing information. From the mouth of Zeus resounded through the huge temple. Hermes in the temple suddenly raised his head. Father God, do you really want to let Prometheus go on? Creating human beings is something that only the king of gods is qualified to do in the past dynasties. The face of this loyal messenger of the gods was full of anger. Zeus glanced at him lightly. Indifferently said, from the golden humans of Uranus and the silver humans of Cronus. Then to my bronze human beings, none of them were successful. Quote, since Prometheus has made a breakthrough, why not let him try again? However, human beings are closely related to the position of the king of gods. Prometheus has never been completely loyal to you, Father God. Let him be a human creator, I'm afraid it will be bad for you in the future. Hermes couldn't help but said. On the large throne, Zeus had a sneer on his face. Put away your ignorant conjectures, the existence of human beings does have special functions. But how can they, who are as humble as ants, be related to my Wang Quan? Quote, as for Prometheus, he'd better remain as clever as ever, or I don't mind letting him understand my methods. Hearing Father God's scolding, Hermes lowered his head. After a while, he said again, Father God, the young god who followed Prometheus for the past 9 years is the one I told you about. It is he who has repeatedly hindered my actions in the underworld, so that I have not been able to achieve your expected plan. Quote, HMPH, he's just a kid who hasn't yet grown up, and his personality is indeed not bad. But aren't you useless, Hermes? Quote, through a mirror-like artifact, Zeus casually glanced at Prometheus. After finding nothing special, he glared at Hermes with a cold snort. The latter took a few steps back timidly. It made Zeus angry and annoyed. He suppressed his anger and told him, go tell Athena what Prometheus is doing now. Let her go to the earth and help Prometheus. Hermes seemed to be pardoned. Nodding quickly, he ran out of the hall. The small lake is clear, and the rippling water waves are like mirrors carved from crystal. The birch is straight, and the lush branches and leaves are dancing in the breeze. In the shade of the lake and the trees. When the water and soil in Prometheus' hands were completely fused together. Accompanied by the fingers of the greatest prophet of the court. Bright rays of light burst out, and the outline of the human figure intertwined with water and soil became clearer and clearer. Poros focused on the scene intently. I don't know when it started. He felt an indescribable great force and was drawn invisible. Haunting Prometheus. Originally, it was only the prophet of the 5th level of the main god. His figure, which was not considered burly, revealed a vast and monstrous aura. The sky, the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, everything in the world. At the moment, it loses its color because of it. Like a minister who calls the wind and rain on weekdays. When encountering the patrolling monarchs and kings, they lost the slightest bit of their usual dignity. Only prostrate trembling, respectful service. In the reality of the world seen by the eyes of mystery. That touch of light and shadow that symbolizes the law. All become blurred and dim. The countless tangled threads seem to be straightened at the source by an invisible giant hand. Extraordinarily orderly. Brush, brush. Prometheus waved his hand abruptly. 2 spots of light fell from the human silhouette mixed with water and soil. After falling to the ground, next to the tree and the lake. Become a man and a woman. At this moment, the whole world shook. The gods of Olympus, the sea, the earth, and the underworld are all drawn to the target. I saw that the color of water and soil gradually faded under the shroud of crystal light. 2 humans with fair skin. The great flood just destroyed the bronze human, is a new human about to be born. But why is it Prometheus? He is usurping the authority of the god king. The gods stared at everything here in amazement. But Prometheus' actions did not stop at all. He quickly shakes the human silhouette mixed with water and soil in his hands. Pieces of mud-like light spots were swayed down. Turned into a human being on the ground. They are male or female, and the skin is formed shortly after. Fades the color of water and soil. Turn into clean and fair skin. Vigorous vitality glows in them. These newborn men and women. They all slowly opened their innocent eyes and looked at everything around them blankly. A new human being is born. But Poros couldn't help frowning. The eye of mystery. A sense of inadequacy emerged before his eyes from these newborn humans. At this time, Prometheus sitting by the lake. Suddenly he smiled and looked at the sky. Athena, why did she appear? The eyes of the gods also paid attention to the sky. I saw white clouds floating in the sky. A dignified goddess with bright long skirts, sacred demeanor and graceful manners. Slowly falling from above. She has a delicate face with pale golden eyes, and a warm and majestic smile. It is these years that he has been famous in the court of God. Athena, the goddess of wisdom who crowned the goddesses of Olympus. After falling from the sky, she first smiled slightly, and said to Poros, Goddess Nyx bestowed upon the gods of Hades, venerable Poros. Didn't expect to see you here. Quote, under the gaze of the gods, Poros responded gracefully. Goddess Athena, I mentioned it to you in Hades before. When I was born, my mother asked Lord Prometheus to be my teacher. Quote, the two had a short conversation. Let the gods remember this young god who followed Prometheus. The youngest son of the goddess Nyx, the god of the underworld, and the student of Prometheus. It's no wonder that his divine power fluctuations are very extraordinary. It turns out that he is an excellent god hidden in the underworld. Gods all over the world remember the name of Poros. But I didn't care too much. This moment, their attention is on Prometheus and Athena. The gods are watching, but I saw Athena approaching Prometheus gracefully. Looking at the number of men and women around them that is still increasing. She said quietly, Great King of Olympus, my high father. Convey your will, let me bestow the blessings of wisdom on the human beings created by your highness. Quote, a brilliant ray of light. Immediately, from this beautiful and sacred goddess, it quietly enveloped many newborn humans around. These newborn men and women. The ignorant eyes suddenly became lively. Look in all directions around you. Emerging joy, fear, excitement, respect and other emotions. Poros looked over again. The new human beings under the eyes of mystery, the sense of deficiency just now. Greatly reduced to lot, eventually come to perfection. Sitting by the small lake. Prometheus has been very peaceful since Athena came. His hands were still shaking constantly, creating many newborn humans at the same time. He stared at Athena and asked, the king of gods is so generous, did you mention any additional conditions? His voice just fell, in the dignified eyes of the gods. In the vast sky, thousands of blazing lightning flashed suddenly. The bright electric arcs are like thin snakes cruising, intertwining in the vast sky. In the sound of thunder, a burly and tall stalwart figure was inlaid in the void by countless electric lights. See this figure. Poros' eyes narrowed slightly. No one needs to tell. He knows it all. This is the king who rules all life under this sky, Olympus and the whole world. It is also his ultimate goal. Zeus, king of the gods. This was the first time he saw Zeus. He tried his best not to fluctuate in his emotions. The same is true with Athena beside her. Bow down in a respectful gesture. Pay respect to the phantom of the god king intertwined by lightning and sky. Zeus didn't care about his existence in the slightest. Those deep eyes with electric arcs beating. Since its appearance, it has been locked on Prometheus. Son of Iapetus, my old friend. Congratulations on successfully creating a new human being. This has relieved me of a great deal of worry. You must know that since the previous generation of imperfect race was destroyed, I have been worrying about how to create new humans. Quote, the majestic and indifferent voice of the king. It resounded clearly in the ears of Prometheus and all the gods paying attention to this moment. Many gods lowered their heads in fear. There have long been rumors in the world. God kings of all ages wanted to create human beings. It is because humans are a race that resembles gods in appearance. It is closely related to the supremacy of the god king. So when Prometheus created new humans, these gods cast their eyes secretly. I want to take this opportunity to peep into the secret of the god king. And Zeus's words at this moment are undoubtedly beating them. It is also showing he has no fear at all that human beings were created by anyone. The so-called rumors that human beings are related to the throne of God Wang Quan. Just nothing. Not enough to believe. Chapter 31. The smaller and smaller silhouette of the human figure was still shaking in his hand. Create more humans. Prometheus is by the lake, looking at the sky with clear eyes. Honorable King of the gods. Thank you for your generosity, Goddess of wisdom, to bless my creation. Bright lightning flashed non-stop. Zeus's face blended with the sky, with expressionless flickering light. he said in a low voice. You're welcome, all life on earth is the people of the gods, my people. As long as the newborn humans believe in the gods, then they are worthy of blessing. Prometheus blinked, immediately smiled lightly. Of course. I am very happy that all my creations become believers serving the gods. Gain the favor of the gods. Quote, that's good. A smile appeared on Zeus's lightning shimmering face. Floating in the sky, he gazed at all parts of the world, and said to the gods who were watching this place. You all heard it. When these new humans multiply, you will all descend on the earth and show them the glory of the gods. Let them be like the bronze men of old. Build temples for us, offer tribute, and compose hymns. Quote, follow your will, great king of the gods. All the gods bowed their heads and responded to Zeus's command. Zeus nodded in satisfaction. Lightning intertwined with the sky to form a phantom, which gradually became illusory, as if it was about to disappear. But when it disappears completely, the king of the gods suddenly fixed his eyes on Prometheus and Athena, who were always standing beside him. There are no spoken Poros. Young god, your name is Poros, right? The child of the goddess Nyx, who is currently serving Hades. Quote, Zeus' sudden question made Poros's heart tighten. But there was no change in the expression on his face. With a peaceful and decent posture, facing the sky. Dear God King, I didn't expect you to know my name. Poros is very honored. Quote, the phantom of Zeus seemed to be very satisfied with his attitude, and a smile appeared on his flashing face. I've always admired young and brilliant gods. I heard from Hermes that you had a little misunderstanding in Hades before. Quote, you can make him suffer, your ability is worthy of praise. Come to Olympus when you have time, where the most outstanding gods in the world are concentrated. Quote, Zeus's voice of approval made the gods who hadn't looked back. Can't help but look sideways at Poros. In a short period of time, Poros found that his reputation value had increased by tens of thousands. And at this time, Hades, who was sitting in the Hades hall, was also paying attention to this matter. His face sank. As Poros guessed, he led Hermes and other Olympian gods into Hades. It is used to balance the Sitting Big Nyx series. Trigger the confrontation between the two factions and stabilize their own power. But now Zeus is going to draw his salary from the bottom of the pot. Win over the Poros and reconcile rival Hades factions. In that way, wouldn't most of the gods in his own Hades become under the command of his god king? For a moment, Hades felt a deep sense of crisis. I can't help but wonder if my strategy of driving wolves and tigers away is wrong. Poros is unaware of Pluto's rich inner drama. Under the gaze of Zeus and the gods, he nodded respectfully and said, I naturally obey your invitation, and I have long been fascinated by the prosperous Olympus. Very good. Zeus nodded in satisfaction. He didn't care much about Poros at first. But after seeing it on the ground, it is indeed not easy to find this young god who has made Hermes suffer. At least the divine power is very strong. If you can collect it for your own use, that is undoubtedly a lot of benefits. While thinking about it, he finally looked at Athena again. My daughter, you stay here during this time and help Prometheus teach the newborn humans. I also communicate more with Poros. Young people are energetic and can always collide with different sparks. Quote, follow your will, my supreme father. Athena quietly watched Zeus disappear. Accompanied by the king of gods and the gods, they all left and looked back. Prometheus, creation of man, also entered the final epilogue. The human-shaped silhouette made of water and soil is getting smaller and smaller. Finally disappears completely. The small lake under the birch trees was densely packed with people. Poros counted them carefully. Exactly 100,000. Half man, half woman. These newborn humans are at a loss for everything around them. His face was full of curiosity and fear. But their natural instincts keep them both quiet and humble. Standing with bowed head before the three gods Poros, Athena and Prometheus. Waiting for instructions. After completing the human creation, Prometheus looked very tired. While recovering from his slow breathing, he said to Poros, trouble you and Athena, settle them for me first. Poros nodded. After looking at each other with Athena, the two came among these human beings. 100,000 newborn humans surrounded them tightly. Pairs of clear eyes stared at them. Surrounded by brilliant glory, Athena was the first to speak out. Human, this is your common name. As for us, they are gods. With a gentle smile in her solemnity, she declared to these humans. The gorgeous colors flowing with the light of wisdom shrouded these human beings. The 100,000 newborn humans immediately knew and understood the concepts of human beings and gods in their minds. Using the knowledge given to them by Athena, they bent down piously and performed the etiquette of offering sacrifices to the gods. To our exalted father, Prometheus, son of Iapetus, who made us. To the great king of Olympus, Zeus, who rules all things. And all the gods under the vast sky. Thank you for giving us life and breathing in this land. Watching this scene, looking at Athena's Poros, admiration can't help but appear on his face. Wisdom and authority are really easy to use. If I were to explain to them one by one what is human beings and what gods are, I would have to wear my mouth to pieces. After praying to the gods, 100,000 humans turned their attention to him and Athena. At this time, they already knew the names of the two current gods. So I sincerely prayed, I only praise you, the only daughter of the king of the gods. The embodiment of wisdom and war, the symbol of civilization and art, the holy Athena. Quote, fair-haired youngest son of the goddess Nyx, guide of the lost and dead. Ruler of opportunity, guide the way, bestow direction, most holy Poros. Quote, in an instant, Poros found that his reputation had increased by nearly 20,000. Hey, the efficiency of these human beings to contribute their reputation points is actually several times that of the dead souls. It was a surprise. Poros has long been accounted for. Because the specific situation of each dead soul is different. Generally speaking, 20 to 30 intelligent dead souls. One time can provide him with a reputation value of 1. In these years, he has continuously trained many dead souls in the underworld. His reputation value has reached more than 300,000. This is because he has been delayed by other things. In fact, Hades has accumulated many years of dead souls. Only a small part was recalled to wisdom by him. Because he is the only one who can cast spirit magic on a large scale. One day can only help a few hundred dead souls to summon spirits. Want to completely summon nearly 10 million souls in the underworld. It will take at least dozens or hundreds of years of work. At that time, his fame was worth millions or millions, which was completely easy. But Poros is not satisfied with this. Because the demand for reputation points in the system gift packs has also increased exponentially. First 10,000, then 50,000, 200,000, and now the fourth gift package requires 1 million fame points to obtain. It is conceivable that the follow-up gift package is required. Although the reputation value can fluctuate. Whenever the dead souls have a vague impression of him due to time constraints. Just go for a wave of presence. But without a large personnel base, it is still too difficult to accumulate. The appearance of these humans at this moment made his eyes brighten. The efficiency is 2 to 3 times that of the undead. That is, about 10 people can contribute 1 foot to my reputation. Quote, and unlike ghosts, who just fade away, these living beings can reproduce. A base of 100,000 people can become millions in a few generations. Quote, dozens of generations or tens of millions. All at once, Poros saw a bright future ahead. He is confident in the ability of humans to reproduce and to forget. Ghosts of Hades cannot reproduce. And because of his soul and body, it's hard to forget his majesty. But mortals are forgetful. When the scar is healed, forget the pain. Whoever you are, don't show up for a few years. Custody has forgotten you vaguely. And the replacement is fast. He can gain fame repeatedly. Then after death, they will be brought into the underworld for training. From before death to after death, there is a whole industry chain of fame value. More capitalist than capitalist. Don't let it go when you're alive, and don't let it go when you die. Poros felt that his heart was black. Newborn humans who don't know what he thinks. After praying, they all stared at him and Athena helplessly. Athena looked at them. Pick out the tallest man and the smartest woman. You two are the first man and woman created by His Majesty Prometheus. From now on, he will be the leader of all human beings. Quote, Poros, you come and give them a name. Only then did Poros turn his gaze over. Look at the two people with nervous expressions. He smiled and said, you guys will be called Alpha and Beta from now on. This is the transliteration of the first and second letters of the Greek alphabet in later generations. It has the meaning of beginning and beginning. Athena did not know the origin of these two names. But she, who is in charge of wisdom and civilization, can faintly feel the charm contained in it. So he nodded and said, "They are two good names. The two men and women. Of course I dare not object." Respectfully said to Poros, "Exalted god of opportunity, thank you for giving me this name." He looked around with his mysterious eyes. Poros pointed to the place near the sea in the east, and said to Alpha and Beta, "There is a fertile land there, suitable for growing crops and developing shipping. You organize all the men and women and go there first. Build your home." Alpha and Beta looked at each other, leading 100,000 human beings to say piously, "Thank you for your instruction, we will surely multiply civilization and worship the gods on this land." Under the gaze of Poros and Athena, they carry all humans. Soon I followed the direction and found the fertile land near the ocean. Take advantage of the knowledge given by Athena and some of the teachings of Poros. Start to reclaim wasteland and build houses. I can see that a new prosperous city-state is slowly being built. Like that, Saint Poros. Quote, standing beside Poros, Athena said softly. Looking at his sister's flawless cheeks, Poros smiled lightly and said, "Then what does my sister think this city-state should be called?" Athena looked at him quietly, without saying a word. Under the bright sun, a boy with blonde hair and silver eyes. Looking far away at the newborn humans busy at the beach. "I think this city-state might as well be called." He solemnly spoke to the young goddess of wisdom. Athens. Athens is indeed a good name. Still by the small lake, under the birch tree, Prometheus washed himself clean and smiled warmly. "Athena, you are not only the goddess of wisdom and war, but also art and civilization. As the beginning of a new human civilization, naming it with your name undoubtedly has a pretty good meaning." Quote, Athens and Athena. In current Greek, it is actually a word. But Athens means masculine and neuter. Athena has a feminine connotation. Like the difference between him and her. Seeing that Prometheus said the same thing, Athena could only give Poros a slight glare. The latter smiled and turned his head away. Prometheus continued, "I think the two of you, what you want to ask me the most now is about human beings." The faces of Poros and Athena became serious. "Your Highness Prometheus, there have always been rumors that the human race is related to the throne of the God King. This is inferred from the fact that the God Kings of all ages wanted to create humans. But Zeus destroyed the bronze humans and left you to create new ones." Quote, "So, is there any connection between human beings and the position of God King?" Athena frowned and stared at Prometheus. The prophet stroked his beard and hesitated for a moment before replying. "It would be wrong to say there is a specific relationship. But why did the God Kings of all ages have to work so hard to create mere human beings? It's not without reason, of course. As I delved into the method of creating human beings, and the specific process of creation, I have seen some images." Quote, screen, Poros and Athena both looked serious. Prometheus leaned against the birch tree, and continued with deep eyes. "First, I saw a huge colorful portal. It is very thick and majestic, and there is an endless starry sky behind it." Quote, "Then I saw a dusk-colored world, extremely dead and silent. Everything sinks into it." Quote, "This is an omen. Renowned among the gods as a prophet," he said with a very solemn expression. "Based on my long-term experience in predicting the future for the gods and predicting their fate. Such omens often symbolize hidden disasters." A hidden disaster. Both Athena and Poros frowned. I feel that what Prometheus said is very meaningful. You can even faintly see related pictures. But I just don't quite understand the real connotation. It took a while. Prometheus cast his eyes from the lake to the new humans working in the distant land. He said quietly, "If I understand correctly, they are the most effective force against that unknown disaster. This may be the key to the creation of human beings by the God Kings of all ages. They are the key to resolving the disaster." Quote, Poros and Athena glanced at each other, all lost in thought. Poros asked, "Are there problems with the golden humans, silver humans, and bronze humans, so Cronus and Zeus want to destroy them?" Prometheus nodded. Those 3 generations of humans were not very perfect. It didn't seem to be effective against that kind of disaster, so it was abandoned. And the human beings I'm creating now are the closest to the ideal. However, it doesn't seem to be a complete match. Quote. His clear eyes suddenly became deep. Muttered. I saw another picture. Poros and Athena's expressions changed, and they came to him. This old prophet who was still very peaceful just now. His face suddenly changed as if he saw something terrible, and he made a low-pitched sound. I saw it, that woman. She came out the door with the box. Zeus asked the gods to bless her and make her the most perfect human being. Prometheus, crazy words made Poros' expression change. Support him with Athena on the left and right. Watching him panting heavily. It took a while for Prometheus to recover. A pair of clear eyes. I don't know when it was covered with bloodshot eyes. Looking at the sky, he said in a low voice. That box cannot be opened. That's redemption, that's destruction. The last words of this great prophet are a little confusing. Redemption and destruction. These are two words with opposite meanings. But he was trying to describe the same thing. What is the so-called box? Athena pondered for a long time, unable to understand. Poros is thoughtful. After waiting for a long time, Prometheus finally calmed down. But no matter how the two Poros asked him, the prophet would never say anything about it again. Poros and Athena had to give up. Everything will slowly surface in the flowing water of time. Their current goal is only Zeus, the god king. Prometheus is a bit out of order. The two let him be quiet. Poros made a trip back to Hades, but did not stay long. After the relationship with Hades became a little stiff. When we meet again, he always feels that the atmosphere is not very good. On the contrary, Hades seems to want to restore the relationship with him. When he went back, he was invited several times. Poros didn't take much notice. He asked Hecate, Thanatos, and Hypnos to do something. Continue the construction of the dead souls in the underworld. Just go back to the earth. Together with Athena, lead the people to create Athens. Go back to Hades every once in a while. In this way, 30 years passed slowly. Human beings on the earth have reproduced for 2 or 3 generations. The population has grown from an initial 100,000 to 1 million. Poros' reputation value is also approaching the 1 million mark. Sister, look, that is the statue that humans built for you. It took a full 20 years and it was finally completed. In bright sunshine, Poros stands above the sea. Far away, pointing to the original buildings in Fangping. Limited by the times, humans with low craftsmanship. The houses are all piled up with stones and vegetation. There are no such finely crafted palaces in later generations. But the elegant and magnificent city of Athens has already taken shape. Follow what Poros pointed out. On the wide and bright sea level, impressively erected a huge statue made of white boulders. Even if the level of craftsmanship is low. But these industrious, pious human beings. It is still meticulously carved day and night. Let one wear bright armor, hold a spear and a shield in his hand. Heroic and dignified, sacred and majestic goddess with bright eyes. Standing proudly on the shore. Whether you are from land or sea. Come to this place called Athens. Be the first to see. Always the statue of the heroic and divine goddess. Athena was slightly silent, slowly said, Alpha and Beta have learned to be cunning, and use this statue to please me. It's not just them, the current human beings are compared to the 100,000 people in the past. It's all too complicated. Quote, Poros walked up to her. He whispered, this is an inevitable trend for civilization to blossom and bear fruit. We should be relieved. The 100,000 newly born human beings have developed a civilization belonging to their race. It's rare. Yes, I should be relieved. I am the goddess in charge of wisdom and civilization. Athena spoke softly, bright eyes cast on the blonde-eyed young man in front of him. I don't know when, the height of the other party has been equal to her. He became a handsome boy of 15 or 16 years old. If you want to touch his head, you have to stretch your hands high. Poros, we will only walk together forever with each other. Are you right? She gently brushed her younger brother's brilliant hair with her slender white hands. In the sunlight, Poros nodded to her with a smile. Sister, let's go back. As the number of humans increased, those gods finally appeared one after another. Asked to assign humans, advertised themselves too. Quote, Get them together and distribute them all at once. Goddess Athena, Your Highness Poros, you are finally here. See Athena and Poros coming back from a distance. Human leaders Alpha and Beta ran over anxiously. In the past few days, many gods and gods have come, saying that they want to distribute our beliefs. Some of them have a good temper, and some have a bad temper, and we can't entertain them at all. Quote. The two complained to Poros and Athena. Do not worry. Poros looked at the city of Athens ahead, and exchanged glances with Athena beside him. Take Alpha and the two to the middle of the city-state. There is a temple that has just been repaired. It worships Prometheus, Athena, Poros and the gods of sky, earth, sea and Hades. At this moment, there seem to be some gods. Is sitting in it. See the arrival of Poros and Athena from afar. Most of them stood up. Goddess Athena, Your Highness Poros. These are some upper gods and middle gods, and they saluted the two very respectfully. As for the next god, while Zeus commanded the gods to come and spread fame and build faith. But now there are not many human beings, and they are two low-level gods. They are not yet qualified to come and benefit believers. The two Poros nodded slightly to them. Then his eyes fell on several gods who did not get up. The first to catch Poros's eye. They are a pair of handsome young gods. The male has short blonde hair, a slender figure, and a handsome face full of pride. Sitting there, like the most dazzling sun in the sky, attracting people's attention all the time. The female is a girl as quiet as a silver moon, wearing a primitive animal skin skirt. The slender and graceful figure is full of wild flavor, like the deep nature. The two are wearing a pair of bows and arrows, and the colors are gold and silver respectively. Your Highness Apollo, Goddess Artemis. For the first time meeting, let Poros express his sincere respect to you. Quote. Looking at the two with a smile, Poros bowed slightly. The features are so obvious that none need an introduction. In front of these two gods. They are the sisters and brothers of Apollo, the god of light, and Artemis, the goddess of hunting, among the 12 main gods of Olympus today. The archery twins of Zeus and Leto, the goddess of nurturing. Behold the polite greeting from Poros. Apollo restrained his natural pride and nodded slightly in response. His sister Artemis. It is a quiet smile. I can tell. These two main gods don't like to talk very much. Coming here is also business. After greeting, Poros smiled and looked at Athena, who was walking to the other side. After she came in, the first thing she walked towards was a green robe. A glamorous woman with a 12 or 13-year-old girl in her arms. Goddess Demeter, long time no see, Persephone has grown up a lot. Yeah, she is almost an adult, but I don't want her to grow up at all. It would be terrible if she was deceived by a male god like her father. Quote. Holding the girl in his arms tightly, the glamorous woman responded to Athena's greeting with half bitterness and half smile on her face. She is the second sister of god King Zeus. Demeter, goddess of agriculture, sister of Hestia, goddess of the hearth. And in her arms was a lively girl with long olive hair. It was Persephone, daughter of her and her brother Zeus. Speaking of which, she is the younger sister of Athena, Apollo and others. I heard Demeter say that she was afraid that her daughter would grow up and be deceived by a male god like her father. Both Apollo and Artemis couldn't help showing slightly embarrassed smiles on their faces. These two gods were devoted to their father Zeus. They are also very cold. Their mother, the goddess Leto, was similarly deceived by the god king. Only then will there be them. Only Athena remained graceful. Smiling to the goddess of agriculture, she said, Don't worry, I believe Persephone will meet a good male god. Unexpectedly, the words just fell in Demeter's arms. The young and beautiful girl with brown-green eyes suddenly yelled loudly. I don't want to marry any god. I want to be a virgin like you, Sister Athena, and Sister Artemis. Quote. The girl's innocent voice and serious expression amused the gods around her. Next to Poros, Apollo, the god of light, has never spoken. Containing his arrogance, he smiled and said to her, Little Persephone, you don't understand the difficulty of being a virgin at such a young age. Don't talk too much, it will be ugly if you regret it later. Quote. Who knew the girl who was held in the arms of her mother? His eyes widened suddenly, and he gave him a blank look. Apollo, you who was shot by Eros' golden arrow, don't try to frighten me. The handsome and proud god of light suddenly darkened. The gods next to him all snickered. It turned out that as the leader of the 4 generations of gods, Apollo, the god of light, he has always been famous among the gods for his strength and beauty. Has won the favor of many goddesses, except for the experience of being persecuted by the god Queen Hera when she was just born. His life can be said to be smooth, and the scenery is proud. But there was one time when the boat capsized in the gutter. The 12 gods of Olympus. There was a goddess of the gods known for her beauty, Aphrodite, the god of love and beauty. The goddess had a son who would never grow up, Eros, the little goddess of love. He who is in charge of the power of love has a set of bow and arrow artifacts that can control love. Among them, the golden arrow represents love. Those who are shot can't help but fall in love with the first female they see. The lead arrow represents hate. Those who are shot will unconsciously loathe the first one they see. As one of the famous archery twins of god King Zeus and goddess Leto, Apollo also has a set of golden bows. Once he and Eros were fighting, laughing at each other's bows and arrows as toys. So Cupid used his golden arrow. Let the god of light fall in love with a beautiful nymph named Daphne. Then she used lead arrows to make Daphne hate Apollo. So no matter how Apollo, who was hit by the arrow, pursued, Daphne always avoided him. Because there is no way to resist the will of the Lord God. That beautiful nymph finally became a laurel tree on the moon. Would rather die than accept Apollo's love. This incident is the biggest black history in Apollo's life. Although afterwards, relying on the powerful personality of the main god, he gradually got rid of the magic power of the golden arrow of love. But whenever he talks about it, it rubs salt in the scars of his heart. I saw the gods next to me laughing. He snorted coldly, and said to Poros with a straight face, "The gods here are all here to spread their faith because of the order of the god king. You can be more direct and give us a part of the human beings on the earth. Let's finish early and go back separately." Quote, His Highness Apollo is so anxious. Poros looked at him. Don't listen to his nonsense, there are still many gods who haven't come yet. We'll talk about the assignment later. Quote, At the same time, he glared at his daughter who was blindly exposing others, while covering the corner of his mouth that was also full of smiles. Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, trying to make herself dignified, looked at Poros. You are Poros, right? I heard Sister Hestia talk about you. Oh, how is Goddess Hestia doing these days? Poros raised his eyes. Sister Hestia has always been very good. She came to visit Persephone at my place not long ago. Tell me that I met a young and excellent god on the earth. He is the youngest son of the goddess Nyx, and was invited by Hades' brother to be the god of the underworld. Quote, I have never seen her speak so highly of a young god. She even said that you will surpass Apollo, Artemis and Athena in the future. Quote, Gradually, many gods came to the temple. The goddess of agriculture recalled. There was a gentle smile on his face, and Poros was looked up and down with beautiful eyes. All the surrounding gods cast their gazes over, especially Artemis and Apollo's siblings. His eyes became a little serious, as if he was thinking about his future opponent. Poros chuckled immediately and said, Goddess Hestia is in my presence. Also let me learn more from the 2 children of the goddess Leto and the goddess Athena. I didn't expect to praise me so much behind my back, it really didn't mean what I said. Quote, Apollo and other gods, their eyes softened slightly. Demeter said at this time. Sister Hestia also mentioned Hecate, the daughter of the goddess Asteria. I met you together at that time, I don't know how your relationship is. Quote, Goddess Hecate, she is my mother's student and my best friend since childhood. Well, I have also heard that she is smart and serious, and I even hugged her when I was a child. But now she seems to be the vice lord of Hades, so she probably won't come this time. Quote, Demeter stroked her daughter's hair with some regret. The young and lively Persephone secretly glanced at Poros. Large brown-green eyes, full of curiosity. The goddess of agriculture said again, I also heard that not long ago, His Majesty the God King invited you to Olympus. Poros nodded. Looking at Athena, he said, During this time, Goddess Athena, following the will of the God King, helped teacher Prometheus. In contact with her, I was deeply impressed by her wisdom and demeanor. I am also more yearning and curious about Olympus, the home of the gods. Quote, I'm going to go to Olympus when the teacher fully recovers from the consumption of making people. I hope that when the time comes, Goddess Demeter, you will not shut me out. Quote, haha, of course we welcome you. Demeter smiled back. But her beautiful cheeks changed abruptly, and her brows furrowed. Immediately, the surrounding gods heard the sound of splashing water. Like endless waves lapping on the shore. His expression suddenly became serious. I saw the outside of Athens. On the coastline stands the tall and dignified statue of wisdom. I do not know when a big wave surged. Infinite water splashes. Holding a blue trident in one hand, a burly and rugged figure, a tall and extraordinary king. Impressively close. He has long blue hair like the sea, and a long beard of the same color. Together with the wide cloak worn on the body, it flies in the swift sea breeze. Set off the great figure that controls the sea and dominates the storm. From a distance, all the gods bowed their heads to him. Because this is one of the three kings of the gods today, the brother of Zeus, the king of God, and Hades, the king of the underworld. Poseidon, the emperor of the sea, rules the boundless ocean. But when he appeared, Poros noticed that the gods here were all surprised and whispered inside. The ocean situation has been tense lately. His Majesty Poseidon has just formed an alliance with the Lord of the Ocean against Pontus. Quote, the war situation in the ocean may break out at any time, how can he come here when he is free? Hearing these discussions, Poros couldn't help thinking. Just as there have been 3 generations of god kings, the boundless ocean has experienced 3 generations of rulers. Primitive Poseidon Pontus. He is an ancient god conceived by the Earth Mother Gaia alone, and the brother of the first god king Uranus. During the first generation of Shunting, he became the first emperor of the sea and ruled the sea. After Uranus was overthrown by his son Cronus, the first generation of gods collapsed. But Cronus appointed his elder brother though. One of the 12 titans, the god of oceans and rivers, Arnolds, is the new god of the sea. But he didn't directly attack Pontus. And after tens of thousands of years in the second generation of the gods, the master of the ocean of the second generation of sea emperor, Arnold Sea. He also failed to do anything to the original sea god. The 2 sides rule the sea together. After the Zeus brothers overthrew Cronus, the 3rd generation of Olympus was established. The situation at sea has become more complicated. The 3 generations of sea emperors stood side by side, and they refused to accept each other. Over time. But now, the ocean situation has finally reached the point where it could be triggered. The battle between the 3 generations of ocean emperors is like a powder keg, which may break out at any time. Hard to imagine. At this time, Poseidon, the emperor of the sea, will come to pay attention to a little bit of human affairs here in Athens. While Zeus commanded the gods to spread the faith. But the gods in Greece are all born powerful, and there is no need for belief at all. Like to be sacrificed by others, it is just a natural vanity. And he is majestic. There is no need to obey Zeus' orders at all. If I didn't see the underworld this time, a god didn't come. Demeter also regretted that Hecate, as the vice lord of the underworld, would not come. Because Hades is independent of Mount Olympus. Unless Hades ordered, the gods of Hades didn't have to listen to Zeus at all. With strangeness in mind, the gods of the temple. They all quietly welcomed the arrival of the sea emperor. The monstrous waves on the coastline gradually dissipated. With several subordinates, Poseidon flew down from the sky. On rough cheeks, gazing at the gods in the temple with a smile. There are already so many people here. Don't be cautious, I just stopped by to see. Come in, Poseidon holding the trident that symbolizes the sea Wang Quan. The performance is very gentle. If it is not someone who understands his nature, you will definitely think that he is a king who is easy to get along with. But the solemn expressions of the gods in the temple, especially his sister, the goddess of agriculture, Demeter, holding her daughter's uncomfortable face. All of them reveal their reputation for the sea emperor. Poros also noticed. When seeing Poseidon, Demeter sighed deeply. Logically speaking, as his sister, she shouldn't have reacted like this. But these 2 gods. There was a very embarrassing incident. Greek mythology is most famous for its stories of orthopedics and obscenity. Among them, the god king Zeus is the most famous. His current queen, it was his youngest sister, Hera. After Zeus is Poseidon. The emperor of the sea has always been known for his complex tastes and never rejecting anyone who comes. He once forcibly pursued Demeter, the goddess of agriculture who was his second sister. To avoid him, Demeter turns into a mare and joins the herd. But still failed to escape the murderous hands. Poseidon turned directly into a stallion and found her. Afterwards, Demeter gave birth to the famous god horse Orion, who became the royal horse that pulled Zeus' chariot. Since this incident shocked the gods, Demeter always tried to avoid seeing Poseidon again. But I didn't expect to meet each other today. Sitting among the many gods, the goddess of agriculture kept herself as quiet as possible. He looked at the Neptune who walked in with a smile. Demeter, long time no see. Persephone is getting more and more beautiful. Quote. Holding a trident, Poseidon greeted her as if nothing had happened. Demeter hugged her daughter tightly beside her, nodding while maintaining a smile. Fortunately, Poseidon's eyes quickly turned to Apollo and Artemis. And Poros, Athena. It's rare to gather so many gods, it seems that my brother's order still works. Usually I want to see you, but it's not so easy. Steadily walked to the seat in the center of the temple and sat down. Poseidon glanced around. The gods hurriedly laughed with him. Only the arrogant Apollo snorted lightly. I heard that the goddess Amphitrite has returned to the Lord of the Ocean several times recently. My dear uncle, you are so leisurely, come here to chat with us when you have time. Words of the god of light. Let the whole temple be quiet in an instant. Amphitrite is the wife of Poseidon and the current queen of the sea. And her father was the sea emperor in the court of Titans, Oce Arnolds, the lord of oceans and rivers. Now the ocean situation is tense, and the battle between the three sea emperors is imminent. Amphitrite returned to her father at this time. Naturally, it is helping Poseidon to stabilize the covenant with the lord of oceans and rivers. Among the three generations of sea emperors, the original sea god Pontos is the oldest and most powerful. It is also the most powerful. Neither Poseidon nor Arnolds are enemies alone. Only by uniting can we gain the initiative in this battle to determine Wang Quan of the ocean. The two reached an agreement early on. But Arnolds is not a good stubble. Standing all the time has been swaying between Pontus and Poseidon. Even Poseidon married his daughter. It was a tense time, and Poseidon sent his wife back to her natal home early. Hold the old man steady for him. But Apollo speaks directly here. But it is undoubtedly mocking Poseidon. If I'm not good at it, it's fine to rely on my wife to win allies. In times of emergency, wander around. All the gods present were worried about Poseidon, who had always had a bad temper. Will he turn his face on the spot and fight the Apollo siblings? Unexpectedly, after Apollo finished speaking, Poseidon's expression remained unchanged. Instead, he smiled boldly. I didn't expect you, Apollo, to know about this, and I'm ashamed too. If you can't beat Pontus, you have to rely on others. Quote. As he spoke, he stared at Apollo and his sister Artemis with piercing eyes. When your mother Leto was giving birth to you, she was hunted down by the woman Helena and fled to the ocean. Speaking of which, I helped stop Hera back then. Now I have a problem, I wonder if you brothers and sisters are willing to help me once. The faces of Apollo and Artemis suddenly became serious. After a while, under the gaze of the gods, Apollo said in a deep voice. The ocean situation is complicated, and the strength of Pontus is difficult to estimate. I am afraid that my sister and I will not be able to help you, uncle. Quote. In my opinion, you might as well go to Olympus. With the deep brotherhood between you and God the Father, I believe God the Father will be willing to lend a helping hand. Quote. Apollo directly refused. It made Poseidon's face darken. He just didn't want to ask Zeus, so he turned his face to the Apollo siblings. What kind of shit brotherhood? If he really went to Olympus, he would ask Zeus for help. Of course, there is no problem in winning Pontos. But in the future, the ocean may also become Zeus's. Angrily glanced at Apollo, Poseidon's face was gloomy. Fingertips caressing the bow and arrow on his body. Both Apollo and Artemis turned their faces away. I sneered in my heart. Poseidon took them for fools. Who doesn't know that Zeus had thoughts about the ocean? If their siblings dare to help Poseidon, in the future, the king of the gods will punish them. As for the so-called past kindness, not to mention the time when the mother was chased and killed by Hera and fled to the ocean. The main contributor is the mother's sister meteor goddess. The reason why you Poseidon is willing to come forward to stop Hera. That's what Zeus secretly ordered. What are you going to pretend now? Notice the change in atmosphere. Athena, standing in front of Demeter, said with a smile at the corner of her mouth. As Apollo said, if His Majesty the Sea Emperor has any difficulties, go to Olympus and talk to Father God. Athena is willing to be the first to go to the ocean as long as God the Father orders it. Help the Emperor of the Sea to defeat powerful enemies. Quote, HMPH, you are really a good daughter of Zeus. Poseidon looked at her coldly. Know this goddess of wisdom who is known only to obey Zeus. He sneered coldly. Speaking of which, Métis is still the god of the sea. I still remember her lovely face, don't know if you remember. Quote, stand by Athena. Poros felt a sudden chill in his heart. Mother Métis is the same as Poseidon's sea queen. She is also the daughter of Arnolds, the lord of oceans and rivers. In terms of the relationship with Poseidon is not shallow. But at this moment, when he mentioned his mother, he was undoubtedly mocking his elder sister for being loyal to Zeus even though she knew her mother had been killed. Under his distressed eyes, Athena responded blankly, Your Majesty, I have told countless gods. I am a daughter conceived by God the Father alone, without a mother. Quote, yes, you only have father. Poseidon sneered. The surrounding gods also pointed at Athena vaguely. It's like talking secretly. Poros's heart grew colder and colder. He knows. Such a scene, sister in Olympus. I must have encountered it countless times. But as long as Zeus sits on that throne for a day, she will always wear the mask of being loyal only to her father. Zeus, you should die. The killing intent towards Zeus couldn't help but increase a little bit. Poros walked to the center of the temple. He said to Poseidon and the others, I think the gods are almost here, why don't we start discussing the distribution now? Are you the student of Prometheus? Poseidon looked at him with a glimmer of light in his eyes. Poros said, Ms. Prometheus has not fully recovered. So today's matter is handled by me on behalf of him. Quote, after looking at him a few times, Poseidon nodded, and suddenly said, well, you're a fine young god. You are now in Hades, and I heard that Zeus also wants to invite you to Olympus. Are you interested in visiting my ocean? I think I need an excellent god like you. Quote, Poros didn't expect Poseidon to have his idea. But think about it, the situation in the ocean is tense, and there is a lack of combat power. At this time, I saw a young and naive main god. Poseidon couldn't help but want to poach the wall, of course. Under the gaze of many gods, Poros smiled and said, thank you for your invitation. If I have the opportunity in the future, I would very much like to visit you in the ocean. There was not much disappointment on Poseidon's face either. Instead, he stood up from his seat. He walked up to Poros warmly and patted him on the shoulder. Don't rush to respond to me, you can think about it more. Whenever you want to come to the ocean, just come to me. Quote, Poros nodded. Just as he was about to continue the topic just now, he suddenly sensed that many gods were approaching outside. One of them is still familiar. Hermes, he is one of the two leaders. The other one full of killing and violent aura should be. Bang! There was an explosion-like sound outside. Athena, you set up a statue for yourself early on. Are you showing off to us by being so tall? The gods frowned. In the clear sky, there are dozens of gods of different strengths, slowly falling under the leadership of two figures, headed by the gods. One was thin and handsome, with pale skin. It was Hermes, the messenger of the gods. The other was a huge man with a brutal demeanor, carrying a big sword, covered with thick armor. A disgusting smell of blood could be heard from afar. He was the one who yelled that voice just now. He seems to be at odds with Athena. When I first arrived, I stared at the bull-like eyes, and pointed to the statues on the coastline in the distance. Keep an eye on Athena. Aries, the gods are here. Put away your savage ways, and don't shame the father. Quote, Athena also restrained her usual gentle smile and scolded him coldly. This god is none other than Aries, the son of the god King Zeus and the god Queen Hera. Perhaps it is because authority also includes wars. Since the birth of Athena, Aries was at odds with Athena. But it's a pity that he, the god of war, is only in charge of war, which symbolizes the cruelty and violence of war. It belongs to the game of fighting regardless of winning. And the opposite is true. Nike, the goddess of victory, became Athena's servant. Athena's war power symbolizes the honor and beauty of war. No matter how you look at it, Aries is not as good as her. He hated Athena even more. Athena, put away your stinking face. You have no right to scold me. Quote, Aries was furious. He stared at Athena and yelled, his eyes were red. Poseidon inside couldn't help frowning. Aries, what are you going to do? His Majesty, are you here too? He just has a cramp in his head, so ignore him. Hermes, who came with Aries. Smiling at Poseidon, he pulled Aries from behind. Poros estimates, the messenger of the gods must be cursing in his heart. Although Hermes was severely repaired in Hades. But Poros knows. This messenger of the gods still has some skills, and he is not considered a fool. Whether it is authority or being a person, they are very slippery. After suffering a loss, no matter how Hades secretly provokes. In Hades, he didn't directly provoke himself again. But he is also unlucky to have a partner like Aries today. Although Hermes tried his best to hold Aries. However, the god of war still focused on Athena and some surrounding gods with provocative eyes. It offended the Apollo sisters and brothers, Demeter and other gods present. They all frowned. This guy is too embarrassing for the Lord of Olympus. Even Poseidon, who was in desperate need of combat power, had no intention of going up to win him over. He was afraid that if he really took it back, it will make the already unfavorable ocean war situation worse. Seeing that the gods are basically complete, Poros continued the previous words at this time, and said to the gods present. Ms. Prometheus created a new human, in order to let these humans know the greatness of the gods. The god king asked all his highnesses and goddesses to come and spread his name. On behalf of teacher Prometheus, I am responsible for this matter together with goddess Athena. Quote, he looked at Athena. A dignified smile appeared on the corner of the latter's mouth. Come forward, since the number of new humans is still too small, for the sake of fairness. The distribution method this time adopts the principle chosen by human beings themselves. Which god you want to believe in, just follow. Quote, her words made all the gods present feel unhappy. Goddess Athena is nothing but mortal things as humble as dust. Let them pick and choose among the gods. Is it too detrimental to our dignity? Quote, some gods questioned. Athena responded with a light smile. The command given by God the Father at that time. It means to let the gods show the glory of the gods to mankind, and let mankind know the greatness of the gods. What I did was in line with the will of God the Father. Quote, she had just finished speaking. Aries, who was held by Hermes there, sneered loudly. You women know how to speak in the name of God the Father. It is a shame for our great gods to stand together and be chosen by mortals. Quote, then Aries, what can you do? Can it be fair and just, so that all the gods present have no objection? Athena looked at him coldly. Astonishing fluctuations of divine power emerged from her body. The whole person is full of sacred and solemn momentum. Aries couldn't help trembling with his big hand holding the saber. Just at that moment, the god of war felt a terrible pressure. At this time, Hermes next to him sneered and said, I think Athena's idea is in line with the will of God the Father, so that's fine. Well, let's use this method. Apollo, Demeter and other gods also nodded. In fact, they don't care about the form of distribution, nor do they care about how many believers they can have. Coming here is all based on the order of Zeus, just a formality. As for Poseidon, he simply wanted to take the opportunity to win over some combat power. The ocean situation was too critical. He also doesn't care what kind of human beings are believers. Seeing that all the gods agreed, Aries glanced around with an ugly face. Holding the saber around his waist tightly, he said coldly, HMPH, so be it. However, Athena, even according to your method, I believe it. There must be the most people who are willing to choose me as god of war. Quote, after speaking, he strode into the sky. He doesn't know. When he provoked Athena, standing beside Poros, a trace of coldness flashed across the silver eyes. Since everyone agrees, let's do what goddess Athena said. Put away that coldness early. Poros turned to the gods with a smile on his face. Alpha and Beta, the human leaders, are called. Call everyone to the plains outside Athens to perform the ritual of offering sacrifices to the gods." Poros ordered so. The two hurriedly nodded and went out. Human beings are not long. The total population is barely 1,000,000. The alpha and beta that had been prepared for a long time did not take long. Just keep everyone outside of Athens. Looking at the dark crowd below, Aries, who stood beside Hermes, snorted coldly. "Even the place is called Athens. Athena, you really know how to promote yourself." The gods ignored him. Focus on the bottom one by one. Only Poros quietly glanced at the annoying god of war again. Under the leadership of alpha and beta leaders, millions of humans gathered neatly and orderly in front of a huge altar. There are many sacrifices placed on it. Feel the gaze of many gods. These two dare not neglect. Bring many humans to start the sacrificial ceremony. O our great father, Prometheus, who is knowledgeable and kind-hearted. You are our sublime giver of life. It is you who mixed water and earth and brought us into this world. Enjoy the sunshine, breathe the air, taste all kinds of flavors, and reproduce the sound. Quote, "Great prophet of the court of God, we are the first to praise you, the first to sing praises to you. This praise, until immortality, for eternity." Quote. Accompanied by the sound of praise to Prometheus, the sacrificial ceremony officially began. After Prometheus, humans began to worship Zeus, son of the great Cronus, immortal king of Olympus. You are the supreme ruler of all immortal gods and mortal things who dwell in the vast sky. In your palm is the wrath of the sky, the lightning that judges all things. Your will is above the immortal gods. Quote, "O most awe-inspiring Zeus, king of the gods, receive our homage. Then let us praise your daughter, grant us soul and wisdom. Athena, the holiest, bravest, wisest, and most beautiful of Olympus. She is the goddess of wisdom and the goddess of war. Victory is her wings, civilization is her guidance, art is her beautiful hymn." After Zeus and Athena, of course came Poros. Compared with the lengthy prayers of the previous three, his prayers were a bit shorter. After all, he did not directly participate in the creation of man, and his identity was naturally lower than that of Prometheus and Athena. After Poros, Alpha and other human beings faced the gods of the sky, the earth, the sea, and the underworld all at once. There came a total prayer. This caused some dissatisfaction on the faces of the gods present. After listening to the prayers of human beings to Prometheus, Zeus, Athena, etc., they also find the ceremony to have a nice charm. Many mortals spoke in unison, solemnly reciting prayers that fit them. The momentum is full, perfectly echoing the nobility of the gods. But why did the first few have separate prayers, and when I came here, I brought them all at once? See what's in their heart. Athena smiled and said, "It has only been a few decades since the birth of human beings, and we haven't had time to fully understand the gods. After today, they have seen everyone's glory. I will compose hymns and sing prayers for you." Quote, the faces of the gods looked good now, and there was some expectation in their eyes. The sacrificial ceremony below was finally completed. Poros came first to the great altar. His divine radiance. Let the millions of human beings below cheer and recite his name at the same time. In present-day humans, in addition to Prometheus and Athena, Poros is the most worshipped god. But Poros has no vanity to proclaim his beliefs on a large scale. The reputation value he wants. The combination of fame and prestige is more like a sense of presence. It would be bad if humans kept talking about him. Because only let them forget a little bit, and then brush to exist. Only then can one wave follow another, rather than a one-time transaction. So, just know me. Don't take my word for it. I will always remind you of me. Poros hopes for humans in this way. In this thought, he looked at the millions of humans below with a smile on his face. The voice said peacefully, "Since Mr. Prometheus created you, you have taken root and multiplied on the earth and created the embryonic form of civilization, which is very good." Quote, "But only the gods are the masters of the world, and human beings want to prosper on the earth. Only bathe in the glory of the gods." Quote, Poros' tone became solemn. He pointed to the sky behind him. Poseidon, Apollo and other gods who have already appeared, solemnly whispered, "Now, it's time for you to make a decision. Every god here is a god who is as great as me and the goddess Athena. Maybe the authority is different, maybe the divine power is different, but every god is great and noble. Believe in each of them, and they will bring you the best care. Poros paused, and suddenly laughed. Of course, Goddess Athena and I, teacher Prometheus, are also one of the gods. You can also choose to continue to believe in us, and believe in one or two gods at the same time, it is also possible. Quote. But don't think too carefully, such as long as it is useful, it is better to believe it all. Oh, anyone who tries to fool the gods will suffer the wrath of the gods. After a word of warning, Poros stepped back into the sky. There are millions of human beings in the dark. Looking at each other, they began to gaze at the gods above. Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, was the first to emerge from it. This glamorous and kind goddess said to mortals with a smile on her face, I am Demeter, sister of the god king, goddess of agriculture and harvest. Anyone who believes in me will be favored by the fields. In the golden autumn, get a bumper harvest. Quote. Under the gentle voice of the goddess of agriculture, a small number of human beings shook their bodies. The temptation of a good harvest is irresistible in any era. Not to mention the newly developed human beings. They long for the fields to be full of grain. So about 10,000 people knelt down to the glamorous goddess of agriculture in the crowd. O beautiful and benevolent goddess Demeter! We are willing to believe in you, build temples for you, and chant your name day and night. Quote. Very good. Demeter returned to the gods with a smile. After her, Artemis and Apollo walked out, overlooking the dense crowd of mortals below. Apollo, the god of light with short golden hair and an elegant appearance. The handsome cheeks carry a natural pride and nobility, giving people a sense of contradiction between yearning and awe. Touching the golden longbow with his palm, he announced to humans, I am Apollo, the god of light from Olympus. My father is Zeus, the king of gods, and my mother is Leto, the goddess of nurturing. Human beings who become my believers will be favored by the light. Have a vigorous posture, elegant appearance, and healthy physique. Quote. In addition to being the god of light, Apollo also has authority in fields such as music, medicine, and art. With his voice, among the many humans below, many young men and women had heartbeats on their faces. Apollo is very attractive both in terms of image and authority. In the end, nearly 10,000 humans chose to follow Apollo. His sister, Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, also later revealed the manifesto. She is the goddess of the hunt and nature. A promise to believers, those who believe in her will be favored by nature, each will become a vigorous hunter. This goddess looks holy and powerful. Naturally, it is also favored by many people. Similarly, about 10,000 people have become her followers. After them, the gods, great and small. Each in turn promotes itself. Each has hundreds of thousands of believers. Among them, followers of Poseidon and Hermes. The number is no less than that of Demeter, Apollo, and Artemis. Poseidon is the master of the sea. Athens is close to the ocean, and many young people yearn for the boundless sea. Longing to sail freely. Belief in Poseidon is also natural. As for Hermes, he has more than just the authority to steal, deceive, and travel. He is also the god of commerce and animal husbandry. Although human commerce has not yet developed, however, animal husbandry is also an important sideline with the same proportion as agriculture. It is conceivable that he was welcomed by many people. After several powerful gods and hundreds of big and small gods, originally 1 million humans, nearly half of them have become believers of the gods. At this time, under Poros' gaze with a hint of indifference. Aries, the god of war who has been eager to try since the beginning, finally couldn't bear to stand up. This man is tall and burly in heavy armor. A god of war with thick beards and reddish hair on his face. He straightened his chest and matched his big sword, showing a dignified and brave image. Confidently walked in front of the gods. With those bullish red eyes, he looked contemptuously at the dark crowd below. Humble mortal, I am the mighty son of Zeus, king of the gods, and Hera, queen of gods. In charge of war, Aries, the god of war who symbolizes killing. Quote. Celebrate, for you will be honored to be disciples as great as I am. On the battlefield, pray my name, and cut the enemy's head with the sword. Quote. Fight, 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 this is the spirit of living. Listen to Aries. The crowd below was silent for a while. When Aries was wondering, he suddenly heard someone whispering. God of war, how do I remember the goddess Athena, who is also the god of war? Yes, if they are all god of war, why don't we believe in the heroic and holy goddess Athena, but in him? Quote. After all, goddess Athena is still the god of wisdom. Maybe the war aspect is just a sideline. Hear their conversation. The veins on Aries' forehead couldn't help twitching. Angrily roared, stupid humans, you know the woman Athena. Her war powers are nothing more than gimmicky schemes, false honors. Quote. Only by believing in me can you take up arms with enthusiasm. Experience the joy of cutting off the enemy's neck with a sword, and splashing blood and fire. Fighting, 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 quote, even if Aries shouted loudly. Many humans below are still hesitant. At this time, Apollo, who was watching impatiently from behind, said lightly. Stop dawdling, the fighters who want to fight every day should trust Aries. As for the others, I don't recommend you to choose him. You know, the god of war is only responsible for conducting wars. As for whether he can win or not, that's not his business. Quote. As soon as this word came out, the human beings below, whether they are indifferent to Aries or have thoughts, they all shrank back immediately. Joke. The god of war who is only responsible for fighting, not winning. What do you believe him for? Human beings who have just been born, obviously do not have lunatics such as war madmen. So under the eyes of Apollo, Poseidon and other gods, they were watching a joke. Millions of human beings, no one stood up, expressed willingness to believe in the god of war. Aries' bronzed face. Gradually it became red, and then livid again. Finally, from blue to purple. Creation of Prometheus, lowly man. Who gave you the courage? How dare you so humiliate the great Aries? In astonishing rage, Aries jerked his heavy sword from his waist. The monstrous aura of war. In an instant, like a picture scroll, with blood and fire, it spread across the vast sky in horror. The death-like oppression caused the millions of humans below to fall into hell in an instant. Aries, what are you going to do? Demeter, Poseidon and other gods frowned and asked. Even Hermes shouted to stop Aries. He doesn't know whether humans are really related to the god Wang Quan. But he knows that Zeus attaches great importance to human beings. So he couldn't let Hermes run amok. But even the gods are berating. The great sword drawn by Aries still showed no signs of stagnation. He had a ferocious face, looking down at the crowd below with a maniacal expression. Flames of blood and fire jumped wildly on the heavy sword that symbolizes war and killing. Destroy, human, no one can save you. The expressions of Apollo, Demeter and other gods changed wildly. They didn't expect Aries to be so crazy, so direct. I don't want the terrible punishment of Zeus afterwards. Directly destroy all human beings. They deliberately stop. But Aries is at the forefront. Another sudden draw of the sword. When the gods reacted, even Hermes, who was the fastest, had no time to do anything. A thick sword edge intertwined with blood and fire. Like the collapsing sky, it fell heavily on the heads of millions of humans below. The gods have sighed, foresee the destruction of the new humanity. And the wrath of the god king afterwards. At this time, a crystal clear, slender staff like crystal, with bright light, gently stopped in front of the falling sword. Under the blonde hair, the young man has a straight figure. Silver eyes, deep and indifferent. God of war, teacher's creation, it's not your turn to destroy it yet. Boom, the thick sword filled with blood and fire collided heavily with the crystal clear staff. The monstrous air waves rolled up in the void like the most violent storm on the sea. This appalling fluctuation, even Poseidon, Apollo, Demeter and other gods were shocked. Accompanied by the huge collision sound, the surroundings were shocked. Aries' thick sword, burning with blood and fire, clanged and shook. The whole person seemed to be hit hard. Driven by the huge impact, it flew upside down into the sky. And at this time, only then did he see clearly the crystal staff holding it. The figure that blocked his attack, the complete face. That handsome young boy with blonde hair and silver eyes. Chi. His arms shake. The thick sword intertwined with blood and fire created violent friction with the surrounding space. A series of pitch-black space cracks burst out, gliding hundreds of feet in midair. Only then did he barely stop his staggering figure. When staring again, Opposite him was a handsome and slender young man holding a crystal staff. Under the same huge shock wave, the figure was motionless. Instead, an invisible barrier like a wall was formed around him. Block all the mighty forces of war rushing down and covering the crowd. Kid, are you that student of Prometheus? Dare to stop the great Ares, do you know what will happen to you? Ares' eyes like cows, staring at the front like red, his voice was low. Your Highness Hermes, this god of war is indeed worthy of your companion. This sentence is exactly the same as what you said when you were in Hades. Quote. Holding the staff of spirit in his hand, Poros didn't care about Ares' tightly locked killing intent. He glanced lightly at Hermes among the gods in the sky. At this time the gods there, just from Ares' sudden impulsive behavior, and recovering from a stunning Poros interception. Poseidon, Apollo and other gods were all amazed at the slender figure of Poros. When Poros mentioned Hermes, he responded slightly embarrassed. I have known Poros your amazing strength since then. It's also fortunate that you were here today, so Ares didn't get into trouble. Quote. After a pause, he continued, to be honest, I have always considered myself the most responsive among the gods. But it wasn't entirely possible to stop Ares in time. I really don't know Poros how you did it. Quote, his question is exactly what the gods like Poseidon and Apollo were surprised by. Ares exploded too suddenly and was too close. Even Poseidon, who is at the top of the main god, can't do it in such a short period of time. Stop the full attack of a main god. But Poros just did it. And Hermes revealed in his words the respect and fear for Poros. The power of Poros was exaggerated to 3 points in the hearts of the gods present. The youngest son of the goddess Nyx, pupil of Prometheus, this Poros. No wonder Pluto asked him to be the emperor, and both the god king and the sea emperor favored him. His strength is unpredictable. Quote, actually they don't know. Although today's Poros has reached the high level of the main god. Plus the power of gods such as the mysterious eye and the supreme heart. It has already been called a powerful existence that is close to the apex of the gods. But to say that it surpasses Poseidon, the emperor of the sea, it is actually a little bit worse. The reason why he can easily stop Ares. It was because it was within his expectations. Zeus asked the gods to spread faith to mankind. The specific purpose is unknown. But if someone dares to hinder, it must be struck into Tartarus by the king of the gods with lightning. I don't think I have the ability to defeat Zeus yet. Poros and Athena have been very cooperative in this matter from the beginning. Otherwise, since the birth of human beings, they have always been taught and managed by the two of them. How can it be possible to follow the belief in other gods casually? For the two of them, it would be a failure to be gods. Poros prepared for this a long time ago. Therefore, in this distribution, every god can basically get a certain number of believers. No matter what that god looks like. At least give others some face, or explain to Zeus. But Ares came to provoke Athena. Athena probably didn't care. But how could Poros watch his sister being harassed? If you make my sister unhappy, I will make you look ugly in public. Otherwise, he is also one of the main gods of Olympus. Look at Zeus's face. Also give Ares more or less disciples. The two human leaders Alpha and Beta are not fools either. For no reason, a main god could not step down in public. It is said to be fair competition, but there is no black box operation. Didn't see the Apollo siblings, Demeter, Poseidon and the others. There are more believers than other gods. And not just because they promised well. This is the face that should be given to the main gods. But who made Ares' mouth smell bad? For Poros. If it is to provoke himself. Maybe I will smile on the surface, and I will settle accounts with you when I have time. But disrespectful to his sister. Then it didn't go so well. He was behind the embarrassing scene for Ares. I have been keeping a close eye on it with mystic eyes. Ares just wanted to draw out his sword and destroy mankind. Poros was aware of it first, and only then did it achieve precise interception. With the present scene, what a fool. Originally, I thought I had to waste a little more thought before I could teach you a lesson. Quote. Now it seems that I overestimated you. When you draw your sword, you are set. Quote. With a sneer in his heart, after speaking to Hermes. Poros, who holds the spirit staff, lightly, has silver eyes as deep as the starry sky. It was locked coldly, and the evil spirit filled the air. Aries seemed ready to charge again at any moment. God of war, the allocation freely chosen by human beings is agreed by all gods. No one chooses you, and that's your own reason. Because of embarrassment, I want to destroy my teacher's creation. You are not only provoking me and the teacher, but also provoking His Majesty the God King of Olympus. Quote. Brat, you're farting. Hear Poros in a similar tone to Athena pressing him. Aries, who was holding a big sword in his hand, was very red in the face. Poros chuckled inwardly. God of war has no regard for anything else. Swipe the ground and swing the big sword again. Infinite war spirit, burning with blood and fire, slashed at Poros ferociously. The human beings below changed their expressions and resisted it. But there was no wavering on Poros' face. The hand holding the spiritual staff didn't move at all. Just a light number in the heart. 1, 2, 3. When he counted to 3, Aries, who was originally aggressive, the body suddenly staggered and fell down, as if someone tripped from below. Hermes, we are together. The god of war who stumbled and cursed. He also tried to stand up and continued to swing the great sword. But there were two sharp arrows, one gold and one silver, shot suddenly from a distance. Shots hit Ares' left leg and right arm. With a clang, Ares dropped the great sword in his hand in pain. The body that was tripped and barely got up fell again. This time it was worse than before. Face down, like a dog eating shit. Ares, you've gone too far. Even our Father God will punish you. Quote. Stop it early, save yourself some face. Brothers and sisters Apollo and Artemis have mocking voices. This slowly drifted into Ares' ears. Those 2 arrows just now were shot by them. Do you think that you can defeat me, god of war? Fight, 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 roaring loudly, Ares raised his head again. Staring at not far away, with a hint of sneer in the silence, Poros stared at him indifferently. Struggling to get up and defend your dignity. Unexpectedly, the monstrous water waves suddenly beat. A blue trident with a glimmering cold light on its tip landed coldly in front of his face. The burly and tall figure of Poseidon stands like a mountain. Ares, it's time to end your farce. God of war finally froze. Then his body fell down. Look at Ares like this. Poros smiled and glanced in the direction of his sister with the corner of his eyes. Still so majestic and heroic. Athena's bright eyes glared at him lightly. It seemed to be admonishing him not to do this kind of thing for her next time. But Poros noticed. Her beautiful mouth has always maintained a smile. Inadvertently strong a little bit. It's beautiful. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.